So what we wanted to do tonight was we wanted to have a free flow of debate where we would throw topics to the candidates, let them talk to each other, let them discuss it amongst themselves, and if someone's getting too much time, I'll jump in, or one of the panelists will jump in and say so-and-so's not getting some time, give them a chance to talk. If someone's not answering a question, we might jump in as a referee and say, you're not answering the question, can you please answer the question? Otherwise, there are no rules. There's not going to be a time for opening and closing statements. If at 9 o'clock, the candidates feel like they still have something to say and they want to go a little longer, we're going to let them go a little bit longer. And hopefully that the people who are here in the audience and the people who are watching at home on Methuen Cable Access, Salisbury Cable Access, and North Andover Cable Access, hopefully they'll learn something too. I'm going to be pulling a Democrat ballot this year, so I'm going to make my decision tonight at the end of this debate who I'm going to vote for. I'm not going to announce it, but I am going to make my decision. And hopefully you'll learn something tonight too about these candidates and who they are. I want to thank our moderators tonight. Christine Morabito, she's a psychiatric nurse from Haverhill, and you can give her a round of applause anytime I say Christine. And the executive director and the executive director of the Police Benevolent Association, Jerry Flynn. Now, in order to get this fantastic hall in North Andover, we had to buy liability insurance, and we had to pay the AV people and the janitor. So we asked some of the businesses in the I keep wanting to say neighborhood, I don't know why. Some of the businesses in the community to sponsor this event. Calizzi Memorials, 217 Merrimack Street in Methuen, sponsored this event with the largest donation of $500. We appreciate Mike and Candy for that. The Northern Essex Registrar of Deeds, Paul Inicello, attorneys Menasian and Aziz at 127 South Broadway in Lawrence. I can't read. Rich Russell, who's actually here today. He's a Vietnam veteran. Rich got applause. And Pat and Miles Burke from Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate. I'm going to allow the candidates each, while I sit down and get ready, and we can go from right to left or left to right, whichever one you guys want to do, to just introduce yourselves, tell people who you are, pretend it's a first date, you know? We want to know, do you have a dog, are you married, what's your prior work history, why you're running, and just give us, 1 or 2 minutes, but we're going to let you guys do your own thing. We're not going to time you, so we can start we'll start left to right. With Michael Marks.
My name is Michael Marks. I'm a Lynn resident. I've been born in... I was born and raised in Lynn. I'm running for sheriff of Essex County as a 28-year veteran of the Essex County Sheriff's Department. Started my career in 1988 as a correctional officer in Salem. I've moved my way up, and currently I'm the superintendent of the Middleton facility, the largest piece of the Essex County Sheriff's Department. In February, the current sheriff decided that he wasn't going to run again. And I made a decision that in order for the department to continue to move forward, it was important for me to at least explore the options. So I spoke to my family, people that I trusted, and I made a decision that I was going to run for sheriff on my 28 years of experience, knowing where corrections has been, where corrections is, and where corrections is going. I've been a vital part of making corrections come from a warehouse to a re-entry facility where we have step-down processes where they go from Middleton in the medium security facility and they step down over to the re-entry center in Lawrence. No fences, they can work, kind of get used to being close to the community again, and then try to get them out on electronic monitoring where they're actually in the community but still supervised by the Sheriff's Department. So I thought that was very important that I do that. We've been working very hard since March 2nd, since I announced. I am married, I have 6 children. A couple of them are here, 5 of them actually are here tonight. My parents are here. We have a big group from Lynn and the surrounding territories that came down. So we're working very hard, and I'm happy. Thank you for having this debate tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I hope I don't have to lean over all night like this. But thank you very much.
Mike, it sounds like you brought your own cheering section. Good luck. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin Coppinger. Obviously, I'm a candidate for sheriff. I got one supporter in front row here. Thank you very much, man. I'm the current police chief in Lynn, and first of all, I want to thank Tom Duggan and the moderators for hosting this. We look forward to an eventful evening and an educational evening for everyone. I think it's a good idea, and I thank you. As you said before, we've had a couple of forums. We really haven't had a debate, and I, for one, am looking forward to it, so thank you very much. Going back, as I said before, I'm the current police chief in Lynn. I've been a law enforcement officer for 33 years. Started my career way back in the town of Lynnfield. Transferred to Lynn back in 1985, and I've come up through the ranks, serving a variety of positions during my tenure there, at all ranks. Been chief for 7 years. I was deputy chief for 14 years. During my tenure as a police officer, I've worked throughout the criminal justice system with partners at all levels, federal, state, and local. I've learned a lot. I've seen a lot. I've seen how crime can affect people, how crime and disorder can change things in our communities, and I'm ready to bring positive change to the Essex County Sheriff's Department. I think it's needed, I think it's necessary, and I know it has to happen. If you look at what's happening with the correctional system today, the recidivism rate, the rate where inmates go to Middleton Jail, and then they come back, and then they return, that's 47%. That's far too high. Collectively, as a society, we need to reduce that and bring it down to something much more manageable because, you know, we're losing the battle. I come here today with the endorsements of former Boston Police Commissioner Ed Davis, former Essex County District Attorney Kevin Burke, and 45 Essex County Chiefs of Police, both current and retired. And there's a reason for that. Police chiefs know how crime affects our citizens and our communities. We see it every day. We see the damage what happens to our towns and our residents. It's not just the tax dollar benefit or the tax dollars that gets hit, it's the negative effects on people. If your house has ever been broken into, you feel like you've been violated. I've seen that time and time again. Crimes against the persons leave victims in the hospitals, leaves families in ruins. It's time we change that. We have to tighten up. We have to find good, solid programs. We need to bring the Sheriff's Department. We have to raise the standard, raise the bar for the Sheriff's Department, get them to the table with other community organizations and partnerships that we have in communities like Lynn and throughout Essex County, partner up with the other chiefs of police who know what they're doing in their communities to make Essex County a better place. Equally as important is this epidemic of opiate abuse and mental illness we have in our communities today. It's killing people. It's killing people all across the region, all across the board, regardless of color, ethnicity, rich, poor, whatever it is. We need to stop it. We need to improve programs. We need to keep people on the track. We need to give them assistance when they can. And there's a lot of people that are in the jail that need that assistance. There are also people in the jail that need to do time. And we'll talk about that tonight, I'm sure. But there is a difference. I see the difference, and I know we have to help that. The next sheriff has to be a multifaceted individual. He has to have strong administrative skills to run an agency of 650 people. He has to have strong budgetary skills to run a budget of $65 million and be able to do that. He has to have strong law enforcement skills to be able to know what to do and how to improve public safety. And equally important, he has to have strong community partnerships. So when the individuals leave the Middleton Jail or Lawrence and they come back to our communities, resources have to be in our cities and towns, aftercare programs have to be based in there, so we can continue to help these inmates back into society so they become productive members of society.
Chief.
I don't want to speak too long. I know I was getting to my end.
It's supposed to be an introduction. It's okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you have to speak close, that's it.
Is that better?
Much better, yes.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, fellow moderators. And thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. This is a very important job. It's a very important job because we have an opioid epidemic in this state, in this country. And this job, and the reason I'm running for sheriff, is this job is a job that can be transformed into a position that can help stop the opioid epidemic. My name is Ed O'Reilly. I grew up in Watertown. I was born into a housing project, a brick housing project. My father was just out of the 82nd Airborne in World War II, and he had just gotten a job with the Watertown Fire Department following in his father's footsteps. I went to public school in Watertown, and after graduating, I didn't have enough money to go to college. We didn't have any extra money. There were 6 kids in my family, even though my father worked 2 jobs. I worked in a factory in order to pay for college. I went to college at UMass in Amherst, and I graduated in 3.5 years by taking extra courses. I also worked during that time to pay for my college degree, and I graduated magna cum laude. After that, in 1975, I did various jobs, but one of the jobs I volunteered for was to work for the Wounded Knee Legal Defense Offense Fund in Oglala, South Dakota on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. I landed a job with the Department of Corrections. I worked at Norfolk State Prison in uniform as a corrections officer, and later I bid into a house. I ran a unit with 50 guys in it, 1/3 of them were lifers. That's when I applied to law school. The next year, I started law school at night, and I transferred and became a corrections counselor. At Park Drive Pre-Release Center, I was one of the people that opened that center in Boston, and that center was for people within 18 months of parole eligibility. I would go to school from 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night, and then I'd report for duty down the street from 11 to 7, until I got a job on the Watertown Fire Department. I became a 3rd-generation firefighter, joined my father, who had then become chief through the ranks. He climbed through the ranks, and my 3 uncles. There were 5 O'Reillys on the Watertown Fire Department at that time. My father told me 2 things that I'll always remember. One of the things he said, this is the last of the romantic jobs. It's like a teacher. It's like a nurse. Every time you go out, you're helping someone. And that's the kind of household I grew up in. Those are the values I grew up with. That's what brings me to this job. The other thing my father told me is, if I did you any favors here in the fire department as chief, I wouldn't be doing you any favors. And with that, he laid me off. And I tell people that because I want people to know that he didn't do me any favors. I was one of 16 firefighters laid off with Proposition 2.5. After Proposition 2.5, I did some commercial fishing, I did various things, until I transferred to the Gloucester Fire Department. I was on the Gloucester Fire Department when I took the bar exam. I was on the Gloucester Fire Department and became a lawyer, and I gave up the fire department to be a full-time lawyer. I've been a criminal defense lawyer for 34 years. I've been dealing with people with substance abuse issues for 34 years. 27 years plus, I've been in recovery myself. I'm dedicated to helping people with drug and alcohol abuse. 100% of the people in the House of Corrections get out. 85 to 90% are there because of some correlation to drugs and alcohol. I understand addiction. I understand what we have to do to try and stop this epidemic and stop the crime that goes along with it. I'm a different candidate because of the fact that I'm the only candidate that believes in the Gloucester Angel program, has embraced it from the start. I'm all about intervention and treating addiction as a disease and not a crime. I'm the only candidate that is a proponent of treatment upon demand and people being diverted from jail. I won't go into too many other things because we're going to get into that as this debate goes on, and I know that Tom's ready to cut me off, but I just want to say I'm also an advocate for an addiction treatment center in Essex County. We need it. We need a facility that also deals with mental illness. Nearly 50% of the people in the House of Correction in the latest survey are there. They have a mental illness. And a lot of times it's undiagnosed. A lot of times the people that are in the House of Correction are there because they were self-medicating or because they reacted to authority in a way different than other people without a mental illness or disability. I live in Wenham now. I lived in Gloucester for 35 years. I still consider Gloucester home. My wife, I've been married for 3 years. I have a daughter with my first marriage. She's 34 years old. I have a grandson who's 6 months old. They live in Gloucester. My daughter and her husband own 2 restaurants in Gloucester. I have a 12-year-old stepson who's going into 7th grade in the Hamilton Wenham schools, and I have a 2-year-old and 8-month-old son. My wife teaches horseback riding in Rockport. I think that's about it. Oh, you said something about a dog. We have a yellow lab named Foxy. Foxy's a male. My son, the 12-year-old, thought Foxton was an appropriate name, and we all agreed. Thank you.
You should have let off with that. Mr. Castro?
Good evening. Just this a little bit. Thank you, Tom, for putting this event together. I have always said, since we started this campaign, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, 5 minutes is not fair for us to discuss some of the issues from the Sheriff Department. Sheriff Department is a very complex department, a lot of officers, a lot of inmates, obviously, and you need a little more time to discuss the issues so that people become aware. My name is William Castro. I'm a Democrat seeking to become the next sheriff of the Essex County. Thank you. You see, I got my friends. I am bilingual. I have a bachelor's degree from Springfield College, a School of Human Services. Mine is in criminal justice and major in human services with a 3.9. For the past 30 years, I have lived, worked, and raised my family in the Essex County, where I hope to continue serving as the Honorable Sheriff. My life hasn't been easy. I have 4 children. One is 30, 28, 14, and a 9-year-old daughter. When we talk about issues, about opioid crisis, every time I see someone out there, I see it like it was my kid. I started my career with the Sheriff Department 17 years ago. I was promoted, I was assigned to the Special Management Unit, which is one of the toughest units that run in the Essex County Sheriff Department. That's where we got the most difficult inmates within the department. In 2002, I was promoted to sergeant, supervisor, and in 2005, I was assigned to, again promoted, to the investigations unit, and I was assigned to the Drug Enforcement Administration as an undercover. For 11 years, I have worked in the shadows of every community, targeting crime and drug trafficking. If there is someone here that knows about the opioid crisis, or any type of drug out there, I am the one. Other than the chief, because he's involved with the police department also. When I see the Sheriff Department, I see a little chaos. High budget, $65 million, 678 officers, diverse department that we need to address the issues of the inmate, but we also need to address the issues of the officers. When we got a department with 678 officers, the stress level is very high. I know that because I work there. And we have a budget crisis of $65 million. And when we have an officer going home to their family after working a hard shift, which include inmates doing whatever. I don't want to mention what they do because it won't be appropriate because we got TVs here. With the stress level that they have to go through. And when the inmates the officers get to go home, we knock on that door or we call them and say, you gotta stay over. And they gotta miss their birthday, weddings, and everything that goes on. It's not fair. That pressure builds where? It's going to spill back to our inmates. We have to take care of that. One thing I want to address real clearly here, I want to, when the chance becomes to become sheriff of the Essex County, besides addressing the inmate recidivism, we have to do a better job, a real good job in classifying inmates. Anywhere from 17 to 24. Because what we're doing now is we're incarcerating people at a high rate, all young people. We put them in with career criminals, people that the system has failed, the programs has failed, and we put them back in the system. We incarcerate our young with the criminals. What are we doing? We're providing a school on how to become better criminals. That's what we're doing. I know a lot of the things that go up there. You know why? Because I've been poor all my life. I got no money, and everyone here who checked my account, I am the least amount of money in my account. but they have integrity, respect, and professionalism. That's what I have. Like I said, I come from poverty, dropped out of high school on my last year because I had to go and take care of my kid. I was homeless when I was going to high school. Homeless when I was going to high school. And despite all the odds, I went back, I got my degree, I moved forward, remained positive, I've done the right thing, and I'm still moving positive. You need a special kind of person to do that. Again, I thank you all for being here, and look forward to the discussions coming in tonight. Thank you, Tom.
Paul Russell. So you got some fans in the audience, Paul. By the way, Paul drove down from Canada to be here tonight, so give him a bigger round of applause than that.
Thank you. My name is Paul Russell, and as you know, President Essex County Sheriff. I was the first candidate to announce this run in 2015, when I, prior to the current sheriff, who was going to, who we thought was going to run for re-election. So I made a commitment to this race to bring change, positive change, and take the sheriff's office in a different direction. My background is this, that I'm originally from Malden, Mass. Grew up in Malden, public school system. And actually was the first African-American to be on the fire department there. There, I graduated from University of Massachusetts with a degree in history, and went on and got my master's degree in public management administration. And from there, with U.S. Customs, and then I began in 1982, I began a 30-year career as a special agent with the Drug Enforcement Administration. I have successfully retired in 2011. I have been living the last 15 years in Andover with my lovely wife and a set of twins. Prior to that, I've worked in various positions, as an instructor down in Quantico, Virginia, worked in Washington, D.C., Baltimore, West Virginia, New York, Miami. So I'm one of the few candidates, actually the only candidate, who brings to the table here only state and local experience working with state and local police departments, but also with national and even international experience. All I've done in the last 30 years is work in reference to the narcotics epidemic during the 80s and 90s. And currently, what's going on now with the heroin epidemic is simply a repeat of what's going on before. What needs to be done to be addressed now, is my mission, which is one part of the Sheriff's Department, is to address repeat offender rate, which is as high, according to my statistics, is almost 80%. 95% of the crimes that are committed across this country are drug-related, anything from assault to serious to homicide. So drugs are affecting all of us directly and indirectly. And I'm the only candidate who has presented a 3-point plan addressing the drug issue, and so full support of our state and local, and including treating addiction as a disease, a crime. I was the first only candidate who brought this up. I'm also the first only candidate to make the connection and put forth a plan of addressing the issue of drug addiction with mental illness, with depression, or any other emotional problems that addicts have. If we want full rehabilitation in the drug world, we have to have a connection with mental health. It has to be that connection. We will not have a full rehabilitation if this is not employed. And this is going to be a cornerstone of my administration. The other reason why I'm running for office is to address the issues that are going on in the Sheriff's Department, ranging from drug use, persons escaping, integrity issues, even the lawsuits that have been filed against the Sheriff's Department. There's no reflection on the minimum of work there, but I put this solely on the leadership of the current sheriff. And I'm the only candidate who I feel that the current sheriff has not done the job he's doing the last 12 years. And this is to be different for myself and what the King is running for. So basically, this is what I bring to the table. We're finding the passion, we're dedicated to get this thing done. Thank you.
Last but not least, Jerry Robito, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. My name is Jerry Robito, and I started my career in corrections in the Essex County Correctional Facility in 1975. I worked 34 years with the Essex County Sheriff's Department. At the same time, I owned a karate school for 28 years. Why my karate school is important: discipline, structure, team building, team leadership. Very important. I took my karate school teachings and brought them into my job. I worked as a correctional officer until 1985, worked transportation from 85 to 89. When the new jail opened up, I went to Middleton and I was a captain in charge of the gym. My job was to schedule every single inmate in the facility to go to the gym. Some people might say, gym, why the gym? Why would they go to the gym? Well, if you've got to live with these guys 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, 365 days a year, believe me, you need them to get rid of that stress. It's a lot of stress, and the correctional officers have to deal with it day in and day out. There's a lot that goes with the job. I transferred from there down to the farm, and I was fortunate enough to get a job in charge of work release. Now, why work release is an important position? It actually opened my eyes. My job then was to go into the community, go to different companies, and promote taking inmates into the buildings and giving them jobs, and hopefully getting these guys on the right path once they get out of jail. One of the biggest problems I found out was that these inmates had no trades. Inmates go to jail today, the only programs they have is drug and alcohol and GED. They get a barbershop, but they have no trades. A lot of companies would tell me, Jesus, I wish you had someone that trades, whether it be small engine repair, automotive, whatever it may be, and I couldn't give them anybody. So they need to learn job skills. Why do they need to learn job skills? Very simple. If we can get them good jobs instead of working at McDonald's for $7, $8 an hour, quitting that job 3 weeks later and saying, I make more money selling drugs on the street, maybe we can keep them on the street and keeping them from breaking into your houses and saving you people tax dollars. That's what it's all about. I then transferred from there. I became a shift commander in the second shift in Middleton for a few years, but my most exciting part of my career was my last 6 years. I was responsible for the care, custody, and control of 1,200 inmates, 300 officers. And if anybody thinks that's a walk in the park, they're sadly mistaken. It's not. A chief of police in a police department, he's a chief of police, or a fire chief, works his way up through the ranks. Makes sense. He knows the job, inside out. If anybody thinks that a sheriff should be a politician or someone with outside knowledge, he's sadly mistaken. Because that's the person that dictates where that money goes. A sheriff should be someone that knows the strengths and weaknesses of all his ranking officers, so he knows who to put where and what to do with them. A sheriff should know the habits of inmates. I've had thousands of inmates on a regular basis conversing with me. I've learned their problems. I know what it's about. When I ended my career in 2009, I had great-great-great-grandkids of their great-great-grandfathers. Revolving door. That's what's going on right now, revolving door. So I bring a lot to the table. I would hope and consider your vote September 8th. Thank you.
Yeah. We've been trying to live podcast this on Facebook and Twitter so that people at home who couldn't watch it live on cable access can watch it. So I apologize for that interruption. Christine Morabito is a psychiatric nurse from Haverhill. She also is going to kill me for also telling you that she's the former president of the Greater Boston Tea Party. And as such, I'd like to have her go first. If you have a question for everybody that...
Thank you. Several of you have called for a full audit of the department. While transparency at all levels of government is welcome but rare, is there something specific about this department that you feel needs an audit at this time? And Mr. Russell, I believe you've called for a massive audit, so maybe you'd like to field this question first.
Yes, plain and simple, just the mass audit of everything that expenditures, where the money's going, how it's being spent, is it being spent, and getting the best bang for a dollar, basically. The full examination of past, present, how we can do that. Perhaps maybe even personnel, sick leave abuse. Can we merge departments in reference to officers, superintendents, things like that. Everything will be examined in reference to how money is spent. Accountability is unquestionably a priority on my list, because that maintains the integrity of the office. If you don't have integrity as a federal agent and as a police officer, you don't have integrity, you don't have the respect of fellow officers, fellow departments, and the people you're supposed to be supervising. And to me, that's a no-brainer.
Anybody else want to jump in on that?
Yeah.
Sorry? Okay.
More specifically, there's 142 clerks/administrators in the Essex County Sheriff's Department. Approximately 45 administrators. Why 45 administrators, I'm not sure. 19 lieutenants, 80 sergeants, 19 canines. What I find fascinating is when Sheriff Cousins came into office, one of the biggest things he said was he was going to stop the take-home cars. There's 10 take-home vehicles right now. And one gentleman lives up in New Hampshire somewhere. I don't even know why he needs a car. I don't know why most of these people need a car. There's two superintendents, there's a sheriff. That's 3. Why is there 10? Don't know. They got a $75,000 Suburban sitting at the jail right now that's specifically for parades only. Brand spanking new. Last week, they had to take 6 officers in a van and drop them off at hospitals to work their detail because there were no vehicles for these officers. This is the year 2016. Back when I started in 1975, there were no vehicles. I transported inmates in my own car. The brand new guy was the one that had to take the guy in his own car to court. But today, 2016, I think it's ridiculous that they have to transport 6 or 7 officers in a van and drop them off at each individual hospital. So, yes, there needs to be an audit. That's more specific, yes.
Anybody else want to know on this? Chief?
Yeah. The new sheriff, to be a proper manager, needs to do a thorough audit from the top down. That is strictly a leadership skill. That is something that needs to be done in any business, whether it's the sheriff's department, the general electric, or if you're working for the ice cream store down the street. The new boss, the new leader, needs to understand the culture of the agency, the ins and outs, what's going on, where the money's being spent. That's huge. You want to know what your assets are, and in reference to the jail, you want to know what your programs are, what they're doing, how they're doing, and how effective they are. So it's not just a financial audit, it's a complete audit, because you, as the new boss going in, whoever's going to sit in that sheriff's seat, needs to have a complete and full understanding of what he or she is going to be in charge with. And to be an effective leader, knowledge is power. So if you have all that information, you understand what you have under your leadership, under your management skills, then you can put together the proper administration to run that agency forward. Personnel-wise, that'll help you put round plugs into round holes, putting people into the right slots. Management-wise, that'll help you to put the proper programs together. And obviously, financially-wise, that'll help you spend taxpayers' dollars efficiently and effectively.
Anyone else want to, you both, we'll go with Mr. Marks first and Mr. O'Reilly last.
Yes, I've been with the Sheriff's Department for 28 years, and I run the largest piece of the Sheriff's Department. So I already know where the pegs fit, but obviously anyone that would come in new would need to do a financial audit to make sure that the money was spent properly, that what accounts are out there. We have several writ officers or civil process officers that have accounts that we'd have to balance and make sure that the liability doesn't fall on the new administration. So certainly, under my administration, we would do a full financial audit, and I would already have a head start in terms of where the personnel needs to go, what changes need to be made to make it a more effective agency.
Thank you, Tom. I also am calling for a full audit of the Sheriff's Department. This past year, the Sheriff's Department had to go back in for $10 million extra dollars. So what's going on with the budget? You have a budget at home, you stay with your budget. You don't go back and ask for more money. So it was $10 million over budget this past year. But I think even more importantly for me, I want an audit because I want to know and I want to set the goals that I believe in. The vision I have of the department, of the Sheriff's Department of Essex County, is different than the vision that's there now. It's different from the vision of others that are here tonight. Since 9/11, there's been an awful lot of money, and I've watched this, an awful lot of money put into law enforcement in the Sheriff's Department. The Sheriff's job in this state is not primarily a law enforcement job. And as Mr. Robito said, why are we having take-home cars? Because unless a sheriff's deputy is on a mutual aid contract agreement with the local community or on a paid police detail, they don't have inherent police power. That's why none of you have been pulled over by a sheriff's deputy, I don't imagine. There's a reason for that. Because you're all law-abiding citizens, I think that would be one reason. But the second reason is they don't have the inherent police power. And I think Sheriff Cousins has done an extremely good job of finding the wedges or the openings between different law enforcement agencies in this county. But I think that we really need to, instead of writing grants for more and more police power, which is not the primary job of the sheriff, we need to be writing more and more grants and getting more and more money in for programs, for reintegration and successfully reintegrating people into society and preventing crime. That's the job of the sheriff. So I really want to look at that. I have the entire budget in my office. I've read the entire budget in my office. And I want to see some things change. But I'm not going to do it overnight. I want to look. I was in the jail the other day visiting a client, and they have new rooms. They put a lot of money into these new rooms so the attorneys can speak with their attorneys. Well, I could hear every single conversation that was going on between the attorneys and the clients. A lot of money went into these rooms. So there's so much to look at here. There's so much to look at in terms of waste. But for me, I want to understand where the priorities are, because this job is about vision and it's about commitment. A commitment to the vision I have. And that's why I want a full audit. I want to know where the money's going. I want to know where we can put it. And I want to know what's essential and what isn't essential. Thank you.
Anybody else want to name this? Mr. Castro?
I believe I was one of the first guys that posted on my website and my Facebook account that I want a full audit of the department. Just because I wanted transparency between the department and the communities we represent. We have a $64 million budget, and we complain that we don't have money for something, and out of nowhere, money just goes poof, it appears, and we start buying things. We have a department with 678 employees in high budget. We don't have to pay them the overtime, and we have to help them over. We can give them time off. But most important, we want the budget to identify deficiencies within the department. We want to implement a new budget where it's going to target programs. So you got to look at all the programs and look what works in the department and what doesn't, and reduce the budget that way. And include programs in the department that are going to be beneficial for the officer and for the inmates. One of the things that I advocate a lot is public safety. We are in an environment of public safety, public servants. We have a lot of officers that leave our departments for one reason. When you come up to the sheriff's department, you're using the sheriff's department as a stepping stone. What you do, you take the academy, you work there for a few months, you put in your application to another department, you get hired for another department. Now we're going to spend money on another officer. We're going to put another academy of 39 officers together. They're not even going to last us 2 years. So why don't we, by addressing the budget, combining that with public safety, because there is a lot of money in public safety, create a division where you can have correctional officers and sheriff officers that will assist our communities to patrol the streets, provide aid to local law enforcement agencies. And if that's what the officer wants, we should give it to him. We should have a contract in place on that. If you come to the sheriff's department, you do 5 years. We spend the money on officers, 5 years. If you move to the public safety division, you're giving them hope that they're going to be out in the streets. So you move from corrections, you move into the patrol division, and you provide academy for these officers to come outside, and again, provide public safety, aid our local law enforcement agencies to patrol the streets. And I'm going to tell you how beneficial that's going to be. Your houses are not going to get broken into. You're going to have a sheriff department vehicle patrolling your street, your parking lots, your market basket parking lots. You're not going to have people shooting up heroin on your parking lots. That's what you're not going to have. You're not going to have people breaking into your house because you're going to have officers patrolling your street. We got 678 officers. And always the excuse that we have is that other departments' contract or the unions don't allow it. But it's funny how we have officers assigned to these locations, other departments, and when our officers get removed from those places, they always cry about it and they want them back. I was one of them. I brought millions of dollars to our department. Millions. Proceeds from drug cartels. Yeah, I might get killed tonight, by the way. But I think the budget, audit is gonna open up doors for different programs. And it's going to start the new sheriff, whoever the sheriff is. We got 6 fine candidates, including myself here. We don't want to stump up on anything in any department. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the department. I'm just saying we have to look at it, and we have to take control of it, and we have to apply programs and benefits where they are being necessary. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Sure, Mr.
Would it be appropriate for me to explain the budget process?
Absolutely.
The way that the budget process works, we have several divisions within the Sheriff's Department, and each division does a line item budget in December for the fiscal year that starts the upcoming July. In December, we submit a budget to the State House. That budget last year was $71 million. They gave us $54 million. We told them what we need to run the facilities, to put gas in the vehicles, to feed the inmates, to turn the heat on, to put electricity on, mostly fixed costs within the department. They gave us $54 million. We had no choice but to go back for supplemental budgets. People talk about people that are being held over. Well, they're being held over at a $53 million budget. So we have no choice, we can't hire new people at $53 million. So we have to ask for 70, then they play the game and they give us $6 million, so now we're at 60, and then we tell them again the end date is May 1st, we don't have enough money to make payroll, so they give us another 5, and it's a game. So they check our accounts, and we have to keep playing the game with the legislature. We need $70 million to run the place. If they gave us $70 million on July 1st, we wouldn't be back at the State House asking for more money. That's a fact.
Before we move on to the topic, anybody else want to reply or be on this?
I'm not gonna be easy on this one. I gotta tell you, like I said, we have 678 officers. They have needs. They have needs. They want to go home to their family, and we holding them over and overtime. They don't even want that overtime. But then again, it's like Jerry says, it's hard for me to stomach it when we have no money apparently in the budget, and out of nowhere we start coming up with toys. There is a problem here, and we have to address those problems. That's why I think most of us want to address always the budget and the audit, because we have to know what this money is going to. And we have to work better to keep our officers there, providing what services there. They are going to be beneficial to the inmate population, and they're going to be functional. That's what we got to do here. I'm not placing blames on anybody, but it's very obvious that we want transparency. We want transparency.
Go ahead, Jerry.
First and foremost, primary care. The sheriff's responsibility, first and foremost, is the running of the Essex County Sheriff's Department, the facility itself. The Sheriff's Department, they opened up 2 detox buildings. Those detox buildings created openings, which created overtime. It's a wonderful idea. I'm all on board for a detox center. But first and foremost, you got to make sure your house is full, because of the safety of the officers that are there. You get officers that are ready to quit today. They're being forced to work 16-hour days, 29 holdovers. Never heard of it in my life. So the detox beds really, honestly, didn't have to happen at this particular time. And the reason for it is because first and foremost comes the care, custody, and control of the house and the officers that work inside. So that's why there's problems. That's why there's problems. Money is being sent in different directions. You $280,000 in overtime in 1 week. 1 week. I don't think I'm wrong on that. Might be up by a couple of thousand. It's pretty close. But more importantly, you're burning these officers out. We're not talking about officers working in demolers, stacking meat on the counters. You're talking about officers that have to work 16 hours a day with no intention of wanting to work those 16 hours a day. And then he's got to come back the next day. You're burning these guys out. That's why they're leaving left and right. Thank you.
Did anybody else besides Mr. Castro want in on this to make it in the matter? Okay, go ahead. Your last comment on this topic, Mr. Castro.
You know, it goes again about public safety, and it goes hand to hand what the other candidates are saying. We have, I'm all about detox. Let me tell you something, that we have to do something. However, we can't just become reactive to a problem. We have to start being proactive to the problem. We can react to whatever is happening out there. We have an opiates crisis out there, and I know that because I worked at my 11 years on the cover with the DEA. Trust me, I know what's going on up there, how our kids are dying on those parking lots. However, we should have been able to bring detoxing outside the correctional facility, which is a secure facility. You just decrease the amount of officers that are working on those units. Now you don't have anywhere where to put those inmates coming in every day. Before, you used to save the bed of the inmate when he went to court. Now you don't. Now it gets put in limbo, on standby. When the inmate comes from court, it has nowhere to go. It has to stay in intake. And guess what? You're gonna have 20 inmates in an intake room where you only gonna have 2 or 3 officers in there. I think that's a little irresponsible, and it's a public safety issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry Flynn, Executive Director of the Police Benevolent Association. You give a round of applause. He's a good guy.
I'd like to make a statement first, Tony. You know, the 6 gentlemen who are up here, and just this is for the people who are in this county. I represent thousands of state correction officers and counties, Middlesex, Worcester, and Norfolk, to name a few, and the DOC captains. And I'll tell you that, and I was a correction officer, and Ed, I don't remember you, and I don't think you remember me, but I worked at Norfolk too many years ago, and I worked in one of those housing units, and that is without, and I was a police officer in the city of Lowell, in the Acre section, for over 28 years, and I was a correction officer in Norfolk, Walpole, and Shirley, and I will tell you without a doubt, that is the most difficult job there is. And for any of these people who have served in that capacity, you ought to give yourself a good round of applause. But more importantly, we have some very talented people who are on this stage tonight. And Chief, I said, you know, I worked in Lowell, and I knew Ed Davis before he was rich and famous, so I'm getting his endorsement, obviously. Mr. Marks, you know, quite frankly, you know, you're in a position where, you know, this is a department that's you're experiencing, as does Mr. Castro, and when I'm speaking to, and I was 23 years old when we passed the 2050 bill, which kind of touches on what you're saying, Jerry, about guys getting burnt out. This job, what it is now, is you get 50% of your pay after you've done 20 years in the system. And that was passed by Governor Dukakis back in the 80s. That has never changed from that. There was always talk of doing 25, 75, or what have you, and it never came to fruition. But there's a huge disparage of money between what state correction officers get and what county correction officers get. And it drives me crazy because I represent those guys. And when you have to go down to the State House and you have to beg for more money. And luckily, the old sheriff in Worcester County, when we first got there, he was Republican. When he first got there, you know, he wasn't really in tune to what was going on. He was a politician who became a sheriff. What's happened now is he got on board, and they're now getting one of the better paid departments in Worcester County is. Middlesex, which I represented through their contract, are one of the highest paid, and that's because of a lot of hard work over the years. So I guess my question, to cut to the chase, is what would you do specifically to entice higher paid officers and more qualified officers? And Mr. Marks, I think is probably a little bit.
Well, I think Essex County was in the same boat. Back when I started, we were very low paid, probably the lowest in the state. And the sheriff at the time really didn't go in and fight for the money. So in the last 15 years, we've gone from one of the lowest paid departments to the top 3 in most every category, from correctional officer all the way up. Our correctional officers coming in get paid very well, about $50,000 to start, good incentives, good benefits. Captains and lieutenants just did a wonderful contract, so we worked very hard with the unions. I was in the union, I was a Teamster, and I was in the IBCO. I was the treasurer for the IBCO for a period of time on the labor side of the table, and now I'm on the management side. And I understand that unions are very valuable. We have a great relationship with the union, the current unions. We have 3. Back in the mid-2000s, I was part of the administration at the time. We had a very difficult relationship with the union. We ended up having to fire a couple of union heads, and they took it to court. We ended up winning, and it just turned the whole culture of the place around. And we have a great relationship with the union now. We have an open door policy. Two of the union people, that the president and one of the stewards was in today to talk to me. We have a great relationship. So I understand on the management side, we need language, and they need money. And we try to assist them. Right now, it is a very difficult time in the Sheriff's Department with overtime. It's kind of a perfect storm. We have 8 hospitals out. That's 16 correctional officers off the shift that have to go out to hospitals, 2 at each hospital to watch the inmates. And at the same time, we're in the middle of contractual vacation time, where we have to give everyone that's been there a certain amount of time 2 weeks off, and the junior people get a week during the summer. So we're in a tough spot right now, and we're doing the best we can. We hope that the staff can battle through it, and at the end of the summer, we should be in better condition. But this isn't new. This has happened before. I think any one of us that's worked in corrections has been held over, and held over a lot. Back in the early 90s, I'd be at a hospital for 18 hours. I mean, it happens. It's not something we want. We absolutely do not want that to happen. But we have inmates that we have to watch, and we have certain numbers that we're comfortable with, and we don't want to drop below that. So I would just continue to work with the union, try to help them. I work on an individual basis with union members all the time. If they have serious issues that they need to deal with, we talk to the union and we help them. So I think that, again, we've come from a very poor time in the mid-2000s to a pretty good relationship with the union, and I would continue that under my administration.
Nobody knows better than I about being underpaid. When I started in '75, I made $23 a day. I had a child at 20 years old. I had my second child at 22 years old. I was on food stamps. I was using a credit card to buy groceries, so nobody knows better than I how underpaid we are. In the position I held as housing director, I realized that, first off, the sheriff loves to tout the fact that he has a lot of educated people working at the jail, and that's a wonderful thing. But let me ask this question, and I've saw it through experience, and Mike Marks knows I'm not lying. How do you expect an officer with a master's degree or a bachelor's degree to wrestle with inmates for their whole career? Breaking knuckles, getting stabbed, the things we see every single day. I got the answer for you. It's not going to happen. The most important thing that you can bring to the table in corrections is street smarts and common sense. You can't buy that. An education doesn't give you that. Having the degree in place sets us up for failure, because what happens is when those people walk through the door, and when I used to interview officers for jobs, I'd say, what are your plans for the future? Oh, I want to be a correctional officer. How you doing? Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I want to be a correctional officer when I grow up. Nobody. Nobody. Jerry Robito did, because Jerry Robito didn't have a college degree. Jerry Robito went to Northern Essex for 2 years back in '76 and '77 because there was a grant, and that grant allowed me to go to school for 2 years, but then the grant stopped. So then I went to a college. It was called Essex County Sheriff's Department Community College, and spent 34 years there. I can assure you, if we got rid of the standards of an education, there's a lot of good people out there. I know personally good people that could pass the interview process, got the street smarts and the intelligence to get a job at the jail and make a career out of it, so you don't have the headache of worrying about no more people, they're leaving. Of course they're leaving. They're going to state police, fire departments, police departments. They're leaving, they're not staying there. To me, it's a no-brainer, but I guess the sheriff likes to tout the fact that they have to have a degree. They have to have a degree. And everybody in Boston says, whoa, that's great, that's fantastic. Get guys like me that work the floors, and I got some guy that got a master's degree looking at me like I'm an idiot, and he has no clue what I've been through in my entire life. So that's what we got to do.
All right, Mr. Samantha, Chief Coppinger, and we'll go ahead.
Jerry, I just got to respond to that a little bit, and I mean this with all due respect, but when I see you hold your fist and talking about street smarts, it scares me. It scares me to go back to the old days where the nightsticks came out, and police did this too. I will admit that. scares the hell out of me because it might have worked in the 60s and we've morphed into the 21st century and things have changed. I'm a big proponent of education. Our police officers in Lynn, we have educational incentives for them, they're paid for it, but in my career I've seen an educated police officer become a better police officer, a fairer police officer, and an equitable police officer across the board. I think one thing we're missing here in this last few discussions we've all been having is training. I'm a big proponent of training. I don't think you can ever get enough training. There's a whole concept of training for whatever it is, whether it's dealing with prisoners, dealing with inmate issues, how to deal with folks with mental illness. You train, you train, you train. When your officers are up to snuff where they should be, they have their proper certifications in place, they have better confidence, they do the job better. And I would like to talk quickly about, and I do agree with you, Jerry, on your comments about it is a tough job. I'll admit, I never worked in a cell block like in
You got that right.
Really agree with you.
You got that right. Let me tell you something.
Jerry, I get the floor. Let me finish my speech, and then we'll go through.
Sorry.
Sure, but I've been a cop for 33 years. I can sit here and tell you war stories where I've been in by myself in horrible situations, life-threatening situations. But I'm not here to try to dramatize this. But I get the officer safety issue. I get the stress. We talk about 16 hours a day shifts. Our officers in Lynn do the same thing. We're always fighting the budget woes. I had cops 2 weeks ago working 24-hour shifts. Should not happen. But I got to put warm bodies and cruisers to respond to the 911 calls, same way as the jail's got to put correctional officers in the block to monitor the prisoners, to care, custody, control. One of the big things we've done in the police department is an employee assistance program. And I know you have one at the jail, but I think it can be improved. 5 years ago, I designated 4 police officers to be our peer support leaders. They're, again, highly trained. They deal with the officers. The officers have stress issues, and their immediate families, they go to the officers for relief. We have a set of programs in place, so if they're having bad days, or if the stress is getting to them, they have relief, they have opportunities to take care of their health. That's key and foremost. And the last thing I want to say before I turn the microphone over to the next person is, we're talking about budgets. We're talking about money. Money tree is never in the backyard of any of our agencies. We wish it was, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about it. But if you have something that works, or if you have a need for money, and you go to the State House, or you go to your state reps, and they say no, you should not take no for an answer. You should come up with 5 more reasons why you have to have that money. And then you garner support. Whether you if it's a sheriff's thing, and you need to go to the Suffolk County Sheriff, or the Middlesex County Sheriff, get together, find a viable alternative. Regionalization is big these days in law enforcement and in the Sheriff's Department. Put it together. If you need something, think outside the box, come up with a program, pool your resources and make it happen, because it's got to happen for the protection of the officers as well as the inmates.
First off, I hope you don't think I was putting my fist up that I wanted to punch somebody, because that wasn't the case. But no disrespect to you, Chief. But I've worked, or correctional officers work with thousands of inmates. A police officer, correct me if I'm wrong, his job is to cuff them and stuff them. Spend very little time with these guys. The point I was making to you is, it's not about the education, it's about what I've seen these people running out the door to become police officers because they have a degree. They have a bachelor's and a master's degree. My point to you is, and I evidently you didn't get it, what person that has a master's degree or a bachelor's degree wants to wrestle with inmates his entire career? That was my point. And I can tell you firsthand, working there, I watched them run out the door. So it's not something I'm making up. The reason that there's holes is because these guys are running out the door. Because they, rightfully so, they've got the degrees to get these jobs. I don't frown upon degrees. I think it's a wonderful thing. I wish we could have guys that want to make careers with a bachelor's and master's degree. But my 6 years in charge, I've seen it firsthand. They're not staying. And it's going to continue to another academy, another academy, another academy. And you know, I wasn't fortunate, as I said, and there's a lot of people that are not fortunate to have the families that get the educations. And I know there's some good people, and I stand by that. Thank you.
Okay, I think I said Mr. O'Reilly and then Mr. Castro.
Thank you, Tom. Jerry, I want to say thank you. I was in 7-2. And at Norfolk State Prison, it's a medium security prison, just for your knowledge, but everyone starts in Walpole and then comes down the hill. So it's all felons, and you're in a unit 3 stories high. and you have a whistle. And in those days, we didn't have cameras, we didn't have anyone in the house with us. So you're in there with 50 guys. And I'll never forget the first day I went into the cafeteria and there's 50 felons looking at me, and I was 23 years old. But then I got to know every one of them, they're different. Every one of them was different. The only thing they had in common was they were all doing time. So I think when we're looking at the morale in a department, only a corrections officer, someone that's worked in prison, knows the feeling of coming to the end of your shift and you're not asked for overtime. The door's shut. The door's locked. You're doing the overtime. It doesn't matter if you have a birthday party in your family. It doesn't matter if your wife or your husband or whoever has a special event. You're locked up. So I appreciate what Jerry said. You know, I guess that prepared me for being a firefighter, crawling along the floor in a dark building, not being able to see the hand in front of me. And I think a lot of us here on this stage have sacrificed our lives for the good of other people, and we're willing to do that. Now, I have some degrees. I have a degree, a bachelor's, I have a law degree. But my father used to say a little education can actually interfere with an awful lot. It doesn't make you intelligent. And what's really needed, I think, in the Essex County Sheriff's Department is an environment, a work environment, where everyone is respected. The inmates are respected, the corrections officers, the counselors, everyone, there's mutual respect. I was fortunate enough when I went to the training academy for the Department of Corrections, they gave us a course. Well, first of all, you know what they did? They locked us up and didn't tell us. We got on a bus thinking we were going away for a weekend. We went to the old Cambridge courthouse and we're up on the top floor. I tried to start a little inmate sit-down strike because we were all locked up for 2 days. And we were all training. Well, I got put in a padded cell. That was pretty interesting. Gives you a little sensitivity into being a prisoner. But what happened is we learned how to communicate and we learned how to respect the people that we were in charge of. And I think that's really important, the work environment. And as sheriff, I was on the school committee in Gloucester, I was chairman of the school committee. I brought in non-adversarial bargaining with the goal, what is good for the children? That's for non-adversarial bargaining. Why are we here? What do we have in common instead of what do we have for differences? And that was really important, and it set the tone. I had to actually tell the school committee lawyer quite a few times to close her mouth. I said, you work for me. You work for the school committee. We are doing this for the teachers and for the children. You're not elected? If we have a question, I'll ask you. What's really important is to have that respect for each other. What I want to do, and it's really a shame because so many people that work in the Sheriff's Department, they look at it as strictly a law enforcement job, and they want to go on to something new, another law enforcement job. Well, as I said before, this is not primarily a law enforcement job. The law has already been enforced. What I would like to see is people to have incentives to go back to school for mental health evaluations, to get extra stipends for that. Paramedic training, get extra training for that. And extra money for that. But it's really about the work environment. How many of us have been in jobs that we didn't like? We don't stay there, even if it pays well. We stay there because we like the people we work with and we like the work environment. I was also on the city council in Gloucester. I've been elected to 2 different positions in Gloucester. But I think that working together and having respect for each other within the organization. I've been there. I've had a lot of experience in the courts. I've had a lot of experience, a breadth of experience in life. The one thing as Jerry said, you're up on the 3rd floor at Norfolk State Prison, where 1/3 of the guys you know have murdered someone, at least one person, and you're up there with a whistle, with all the windows closed in the winter time. You're telling me that that you're not working on guts or what you do is you form relationships with people. I formed relationships with people. I treated them as adults. They were doing time. I wasn't making it easier. I wasn't making it any harder. But I formed relationships with those people, and the same people started coming through Park Drive Pre-Release Center. And there's only one time that I had someone try to hurt me. He was just a bad shot with a fire extinguisher from 4 floors up. I don't think he was trying to kill me. He had to wait a few more years so he could testify against Whitey Bulger. It's a bad guy. There were bad guys there. But most of all, people are looking for respect. I've been working with inmates before they go to jail. I've been working with people who have committed crimes. It doesn't necessarily define the entire person. So I'm not a very judgmental person. I'd like to think that I'm not, but it's really important. I was on the bargaining committee for the firefighters when I was in Gloucester. I was a member of IAFF Local 762 and Locals 1347 in Watertown. My cousin Teresa McGoldrick is the vice president of NAGE. We come from a union family. There's no reason that we can't work together with respect. And I respect the work, and I would like to think that the people that work at the jail don't really want to go on to something else, that we are actually something in and of ourselves. And to build that pride in our work and what we're doing, to me is really, really one of my top goals. So, thank you.
Can I just caution you guys that we've eaten up a lot of time, and so if you could just kind of hone your answers a little shorter, because we've got a lot more questions and we've only gotten through 2.
Very briefly, Eddie, you said it a couple of times, I just want to clarify it. You said a couple of times that the Sheriff's Office is not primarily law enforcement. I got to tell you, I disagree with you, and I know you're coming at it from a defense attorney's point of view, and I respect that, but these gentlemen and ladies here in the audience and on the stage here, the jail is part of law enforcement. They are enforcing the court's order, which is the commitment, the time these folks have to be in correction. A lot of them carry firearms, a lot of them they do have law enforcement powers on the street, and a lot of them are out in our community working on task forces, drug task forces, gang force, task forces to enforce the law. So I disagree with you on that one, Eddie. They are part of law enforcement.
A little shorter than we've been going.
Tom, I used the word primarily. That was the word I used, primarily law enforcement.
Primarily, okay. Fair enough.
Right. Not the first time.
We'll let you guys fight it out on the next question. Mr. Castro.
Money's good, but having self-esteem and respect for our officers, I think, is very important. If we give our officers the tools to work better in a less hostile working environment, as we all said, give them more training, I think that would be more beneficial than anything else. And I would like to read something that I wrote when I first started this. Very important. Understanding what the community needs is very important to me. Targeting inmate recidivism, substance abuse, and improving the quality of life in our city will be my top priority. Building a bridge where officers can work in a hostile-free environment, away from political harassment, where their performance can be rewarded and recognized, is my personal mission. Thank you.
Mr. Russell, you've been really quiet on this. You want in on it?
Well, my perspective on this is different. I've been involved in public service all over 40 years. I went into law enforcement, not for the benefits, not for the pay, but basically to make a difference. And I think that it takes a special person to work in public service, particularly in law enforcement, to make this commitment. It's, and my wife would say, I miss birthday parties, anniversaries, everything. But again, it's public service. And these jobs in law enforcement, in capacity, is not easy. The stress on the family. In my particular job, we've had people commit suicide, killed in the line of duty, and all that. But it takes a special person to be in this field. The reason why I'm running is that again, it's to address the issue that's going on in the community, to really make a difference. So there has to be set in mind. So that's really kind of my interject. Being in law enforcement is special. And I do disagree with Mr. O'Reilly that about his take on the Sheriff's Department. It is a law enforcement public service agency, as far as I'm concerned. I've worked with them directly and indirectly, and the mission may alter, but again, it is a law enforcement agency.
Do you want to address just there was an exchange before between Mr. Robito and Mr. Coppinger as to whether or not people who are working in the jail should be allowed to get that job or hold that job if they're not don't have college education. I think Jerry said that there are people who don't have college educations that could do the job well that maybe we could keep. I'm not taking a side on that, but I'm asking if you want to weigh in on it.
Well, I mean, for becoming an agent, you have to have a college degree. And I haven't had a master's degree. And I grew up in the projects, and no one's more street than I have been. I've rolled around on the ground, I've been shot at. I actually lost a limb in line to do. So, because one has an education does not make one.
Thank you, by the way.
One that does not have education does not make one, difference either or common sense. But saying that, I'm a man. I remember when we didn't have computers and technology. We live in a smaller world. As you know, we're advancing. I think it's very, very important that police officers and people in public safety have the best training as possible. We're always evolving. The things that happened even 4 or 5 years ago didn't exist. Email, cell phones, things like that. Always evolving and changing. The bad guys are doing it, and I think it's important. Training, with me anyway, would be a priority. I was an instructor down in Quantico, Virginia, teaching state and local, also in Bridge with the state police. And things are always evolving and changing continuously. Simple fact, I mentioned this before, when I first started as an agent, street-level heroin was 2%. Street-level, 2% was great. Now, when I left, I left it to 95, 98% pure. And it's cheaper. Things always evolve and change. Marijuana that was smoked during the 60s is not the same as it is now. So we have to keep on the training, continue evolving. We don't want bad things to happen, but we got to prepare for these things. And a trained officer, or whether it be agent, police officer, is more than likely to make less mistakes and be able to protect himself and the public. Training is, to me, is up there. It's incredible. It's unquestionable.
You agree more with Chief Coppinger?
I do.
On that issue.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm just going to ask a yes or no question. So I want these two fine panelists to ask some more substantive questions. So just a yes or no, and we can go left to right or right to left. If you lose, will you commit tonight to supporting the Democrat nominee for this position, Mr. Castro?
To support?
Yes.
Yes.
Paul?
Yes. Yes. That was rough.
You had to think about it, though.
Yeah, you thought about it a little bit.
Mr. O'Reilly?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. All right, we got a yes from all three, all six. That's excellent. Christine Morabito, do you have another question for our fine panelists? And if they could, we're not timing these answers. We're kind of relying on you guys to kind of watch the clock, and we don't want to cut you off. I want you to be able to say what it is that you want to say, the way you want to say it. But we are running on time, and we are going to run a little bit late, maybe till 9:30, if that's okay with everyone, right? Yes. Okay. Christine?
I wanted to talk a little bit about the nursing care at the jails. They currently have a contract with an organization called NAFCare from Alabama. From what I hear, there are issues with this organization. One of the problems is they've lost a lot of their seasoned nurses. There are also complaints that nurses are not properly trained, especially to be first responders. They may be trained in nursing, but not necessarily how to deal with someone that's hanging, someone that was recently stabbed, things like that. When NAFCARE's contract is up, are there any thoughts about going back to, I believe they use correctional medical services in the past?
Yes. Hold on. Right here. When I first started at the Sheriff's Department back in 1999, that was one of my first assignments. It was very interesting to see how, if an inmate had an issue, we'll take him from the unit. It didn't matter if it was a fight, if it was, like Jerry says, a cut in the finger. We take him to the infirmary. We took care of that inmate in the infirmary. The nurses were trained for the job. background work conducted for the job, and it was a little better. Now that we have a contractor, we don't know who works for these contractors, and I'll give you a personal experience. I arrested a lady that was selling drugs, boyfriend was selling drugs, and she was working on our department. So we lose control when we give contract to other people from the sheriff's department. We lose control in the safety department and the vision of the department, meaning saving money. Because everything from a paperclip cut, like Jerry mentions, it gets sent into the hospital when you can take care of it in the department. So I'm totally against having a contractor, because remember, when you go to the lowest bidder, what you get? That's what you get. Thank you.
Good, Jay.
When I was in charge of housing, I oversaw the infirmary. But more importantly, I was there when we, the sheriff's department, hired nurses. We screened them. We made sure we had the best fit for the job. When the sheriff decided to privatize, incidentally, or in fact, should I say, privatizing with the infirmary and the kitchen is a major issue, major issue. But in regards to the infirmary, I actually had nurses that were having affairs with inmates. I had nurses that had tattoos. They had their shirts down, the tattoos coming up to their neck. And I'm saying, who hires these people? Well, it's real simple. It's privatized. We don't hire. So we inherit, we don't hire. So I've had multitude of phone calls in the last 2 months. My child has serious problems. They're not giving him medication for his issues. Do you know why? I mean, multitude of problems up in the infirmary, and it's because they privatized. I would go back to the old ways, based on my experiences.
Mr. Marks, you've been there.
Well, unfortunately, in corrections, everything is money driven. And at some point in time, nationally, privatization of food services and medical just became the norm. It's like snow and ice. You can budget $1 million for health care, and then you get an inmate that's in the hospital for 3 years, like we have right now. We have an inmate that's been in and out of the hospital for 3 years, millions of dollars worth of health care for this individual. He was shot in Boston by a Middlesex County deputy after he shot one of their deputies. So the reason for privatization is to make sure that the liability for health care falls on the contractor, but we also have a contract in place that they have to follow. So we monitor those contracts and we make sure that they're giving the health care that's necessary and that's similar to community health care. The nursing staff, I believe, the problem with the nursing staff is they're not used to correctional health care. It's a very, very difficult place to practice health care. It's not a hospital. These people aren't always nice, and the nurses get cynical very quickly, and then they leave. So there's so much turnover, and the pay certainly is not close to what they get paid in the community. And they're held over as well. And in the private sector, they're able to pretty much, if you're a good nurse, you can write your own ticket, and you can go where you want to go and make what you want to make. And unfortunately, in this industry, that's not the case. But I think that overall, we have very good correctional health care. The NAFCare is accredited by the American Correctional Association and also by the National Commission on Correctional Health Care, NCCHC. They both come in every 3 years. They do an audit of the medical process, and NAFCare has passed since they've been here. What I will say that I will do is I will put that, the next time that contract comes up for bid, I will not just automatically renew the bid or extend the bid. I will put it back out to bid and let people compete for that contract. That's what I would do.
I'm just curious. If we were to do that, doesn't that exacerbate the problem though? Because if you put it out to bid, you have to have companies that bid lower, which means they pay their people less, which means you get less quality workers.
Well, when they put it out for bid, they have to be They have to compete for the job, and we put the spec out. We tell them what we expect from them in terms of medical runs, how much money they can spend when out in the hospital field. So we write the spec, and they're held accountable to that spec, and we have to make sure that we monitor that, which we do. But I would put it out there to make sure that NAVCare or any even Aramark, that they weren't just resting on their laurels, that they know we're not just going to automatically extend their contract, you know, another year or another 3 years just because we can. The contracts for our privatization vendors would go out for bid on a regular basis as the original contract said. So if it's a 5-year contract, 5 years down the road, it's going back out to bid again. So they have to make sure that they know that they're doing a good job, or we have a way to get around that and hire somebody else 5 years down the road.
Okay. Anybody agree or disagree with that hasn't spoken on this, Jerry?
I was in Lynn, we were in Lynn a few weeks ago, and after I got done speaking, a lady came up to me and she said, "What's going on in Middleton?" I says, what do you mean what's going on? She says, "My husband is having an affair with one of the females that's working in the kitchen. What's going on there?" Well, I gotta be honest with you, I don't know how it happens, but I've gone out to the lobby when I was leaving work and saw some people out there sitting there, thought they were there to visit, and they were there actually for an interview for a job. So if that's what privatization does, I'm against it. There may be another option, but what I saw.
Well, you've spoken. Anybody hasn't spoken on this? Mr. Riley?
I haven't spoken on this.
Attorney O'Reilly, I apologize.
No, you don't have to call me that. Thanks. I don't want to, yeah, thanks. I'm not in favor of privatization of healthcare at the jail. And I think, Christine, you actually said something else in the question that I wanted to address. I think we lose control of healthcare when we have people from outside. And I don't care about tattoos or anything like that, but I do care about the quality of healthcare. One of the things as a firefighter, I was a CPR instructor, and I've had the good fortune to bring back 2 people as a private citizen, and they were dead, and I had the good fortune of bringing them back. And I think a part of your question, you're talking about emergency medical services. Now, everyone at the jail should be trained as a first responder, but what do we do beyond that? The whole idea of healthcare and emergency care, EMS services, is to stabilize a patient. For instance, the other night when the Democratic State Committee, someone collapsed, and I followed the chair because I'm a former firefighter, and I always do that. And I got there and I said, "Excuse me, I'm a former firefighter," and the guy with the chair said, "Hey, Eddie, how are you?" He was a Lawrence firefighter, and they just endorsed me, and the Lawrence firefighters have endorsed me, and I'm friendly with a lot of them. But what we really need to do, I talked about this in training, in giving stipends to people. For instance, in the Gloucester Fire Department, nearly half the fire department are not only EMTs, they're paramedics. And in the institution, in the Sheriff's Department, I would be giving stipends to people who have their EMT, or even better yet, a paramedic degree, because it's all about saving lives. Anytime anyone is stabilized, you're saving their life, and then you have time to bring them to wherever you need to do. So it's really a 2-part answer, and I heard that in your question, and I don't know if it was addressed, but we really need to have emergency medical services and everyone on the staff trained, and I like to see everyone, a lot of the people on the line be trained as EMTs, but you have to give people more money to do that, which I would be in favor of. The other part of it is we really need to have control over who and what is being done at the infirmary. And we lose that when we do the privatization. And I think a few people have mentioned this, money-driven medical care should not exist.
Mr. Russell, do you want it on this? I don't think you spoke on this, did you?
When a person is arrested and taken control, whether it be state, federal, or local law enforcement, the department is ultimately responsible for that individual. And that includes his health care issues, medication, whatever it may be. Saying that is that I'm not really a big fan of contractors or contract help. We have to protect our interest in reference to our inmates, and also to we could leave ourselves open for some type of legal issues or problems that we did not supply proper health care to the inmate. There have been cases involved where departments, even when I worked for, was sued because of certain medications weren't given or something devastating happened to the prisoner. So saying that, I would be a firm believer and supporter of getting on board people who are vested with the department, with the agency, who have proper training, nurses who are trained in reference to dealing with inmates, doctor staff, even working in concert with the local hospital or healthcare unit. Though it may be a little more costly, but I think in the long run, overall, it'd be more effective.
If I could just go back to a few questions before. We're at $54 million, we're looking for $16 million, so certainly a lot of these things are great. We'd love to be able to do them, but we have to do what meets the budget, what the budget will support, and taking the privatization away and hiring our own staff would increase that line item for healthcare. The nurses are all licensed, the doctors are licensed, the mental health clinicians are licensed, we have a psychiatrist, we have an MD on staff, nurse practitioners, so they're capable people. And we can guarantee that there is a cost to that, and it's not going to go above that. And that's the reason. It's a business. We're trying to run a business here and give the inmates the health care that they deserve, but making sure that we can control costs at the same time.
Christine, did anybody want to answer the question? Okay. Everybody answer this question? I know one person wanted to follow up, that's why I wanted to ask first. Mr. Castro wanted to say a quick follow-up, quick.
Like I said, when I started there, it was a whole different ballgame. The way inmates were treated and everything was fine. We lost that touch. And even though we say that we have a fixed amount of money going into this, I think it's going to be more than that. And the care is not the same. I can tell you that. Paper cuts don't go to the hospital. How much would you spend for an ambulance or taking someone to the hospital? It's insane.
Real quick, Jerry, you wanted to follow up?
Yeah, as an example, you got to know where your priorities are. Should we have 10 take-home cars and a $75,000 vehicle sitting out there just for parades? Could that money go somewhere else? Maybe we can transfer that over to another area. Care, custody, control is the priority. Care, custody, control. And whatever it takes to get that care, custody, control comes first.
Jerry, you have a question?
There's obviously a known problem with the opiate epidemic in this country. And, but one of the things that is overlooked, and I think it's being finally addressed, certainly with New England PBA and Middlesex County Sheriff, is that there's a serious suicide rate amongst correction officers. And I'd like to hear what each of these candidates would like to see and what they're going to propose they do, because it's nice to say we're going to take care of the inmate, but as Ed pointed out in Norfolk, you know, there's 2 correction officers that were murdered there, and they were Sousa and Baranowski, and that's why the MCI Shirley is now called the Sousa-Baranowski prison. Those were 2 correction officers that were killed in the line of duty. And we have correction officers each and every day in this country that are taking their own lives, and they're taking their own lives because of the stress on the job. And I think that as someone with a master's degree, I certainly understand the need for an education, but I also don't disagree with Jerry. I have a brother who was a 28-year veteran of the Concord prison, and he didn't have a degree. So there's a lot to be said about people coming in and out. And I think that with the the guys who are under a lot of stress from coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and those are the people you're going to be hiring, let's face it. And the reason people are going to corrections and not staying there, it's an absolute stepping stone. But for a lot of these guys, a lot of these people who are under a lot of stress behind them, and I think you probably ought to touch better on this than I would, but, you know, what are you specifically going to do to ensure that we're protecting those who are there to protect and serve?
Man. It's true, obviously there's a high risk of suicide with correctional officers, there's a high risk of suicide with police officers. Several years ago, one of our lieutenants, he was a very good friend of mine, took his own life. And that evening, after we got the call, I went down to the station, I addressed roll call with the officers, and you can imagine what the feeling was around there. And in order to try to help the officers, we brought the Boston Police Stress Unit in, which we have a great relationship with. And I remember one of their psychologists saying to me, Kevin, if the individual took his life, his name is Dennis Flynn. If Dennis had the, pardon my English, I'm going to quote, if he had the balls to take his own life, that's going to tell other people in your department that if they have issues, if Dennis did it, I can do it. That's always stuck in my mind. It's almost enabling somebody else to take their life because one of your fellow officers did it. I'm sure that same theory, maybe Christine would agree with me, resonates in corrections too, because it is a tough job. That's why I go back to what I said before about our employee assistance program, the peer support team. It's such a huge issue and a huge asset that you have to have it. And one of the issues that we pushed here, and we negotiated with our union, is the confidentiality issue, which if you don't have it with management, you're going to stifle individuals through your rank and file from coming forward to seeking the treatment you need. Now there's a fine line, and I know I got to keep my answer short, so I'm going to try and do this briefly, but in essence, if the individual's psychological issues may affect the job, and it has to come to management's attention so we can address it. We don't want anything happening to obviously the inmates or the public or the police officers. But you need to have a venue or an avenue so if the individual corrections officers or the individual police officers on the street, if they're at that stress level, or if they're thinking that, they need to be able to go to the employee assistance program and seek help before it becomes that crisis mode. So I would endorse that, I would support that, and that needs to be happening. It should be happening today, and if it isn't, it needs to happen tomorrow.
Yes, thank you. For my brothers that are here, and I say brothers because that have worked inside of an institution, I can remember you're going from one world to another. You're going. It's the weirdest feeling. You'll be sitting at dinner. You're 2 hours out of work, and you've just come from this other world. It's a different world, and you're going in and out of these two worlds on a constant basis. I can just remember thinking how it just affected me a lot. I remember how much it affected me. It's really important to have employee assistance programs. I find isolation, you know, I just had a really close friend take his own life because he couldn't get straightened out. And this was a good hockey player, a real great guy. Went to Ireland with him playing golf. And he isolated and he got into pills. And he just started coming back, but he took his own life. You never know what's going on in someone's head. You never really know. But I think it's really important that we have, first of all, mental health evaluation when someone comes in. And that maybe we could have the same type of thing on a yearly basis. Not as a punitive measure at all, but to help. And even put that in the contract, that the person is not to be any kind of punitive action that is there to help someone. Because you're talking about a very stressful job. You're talking about things that you see as a corrections officer, just as a firefighter, just as a police officer. You see things and you can't erase them. You can't erase them from your mind. You try to deal with it yourself. And I think most of us do. We don't want to ask for help. We need to create an environment where people feel comfortable talking about their own weaknesses or what's on their mind. Isolation is the first step in terms of substance abuse. Isolation is the first step in terms of taking one's own life. And we need to be aware of that. We need to stay as a team. And I would support an employee assistance program that would help people and no one to be treated punitively because they have a so-called weakness, that people should be open about that, and to have a staff person, full-time psychologist on staff for people to stop in and talk with anytime they want. Thank you.
Can I just ask as a quick follow-up, Attorney Riley, because you've worked there, would you trust the people that you worked for to go and talk to them about having suicidal thoughts, knowing that even if they didn't do something formally, that informally, if they whispered that to anybody else that you worked with, could be the end of your career?
Well, that's why it'd have to be built right into the contract, that they cannot be. First of all, it's a confidentiality agreement. You have to have someone in that position that has tight lips, that would never, ever talk about things. Like, there are some police officers I've worked with who have been undercover that have never, ever, ever said one thing to anyone else about what they know. And that's what you need in a job like that. You need to trust that.
Well, I was asking you more you personally. Would you trust, if you were working for Sheriff Frank Cousins right now, if you were working in the Essex County Sheriff's Department, and you were having this kind of an issue, would you trust the department to go to somebody who worked for the department to talk about those issues?
I think that's a great point. I think, you know, I would be hesitant. That's why that person would have to be.
That's why I'm asking.
That's why that person has to be a very, very special person. And maybe just, you know, we could work it out so that it's not on premises, you know, so no one knows what you're doing. But you'd want someone that was trained in this area with the same types of stresses. But having a person like that in the institution, no, I don't think that's a good idea. It'd have to be off campus, so to speak. But I agree with Tom, that's a very sensitive issue, something to think about.
Just to follow up to that, there's a police officer who's since retired. His name is Mike Miles. Mike was the first police officer ever admitted that he had a cocaine problem. And he wasn't fired. He was suspended. He got his job back, went through the program. Today he went to Salem State. Today he's now a counselor for addiction. He's also a counselor for families and things. And what he does now is he's actually working under a contract with the Middlesex Sheriff's Office. And I would implore whoever is the candidate to get in touch with Mike and get in touch with the sheriff and to see the type of success that they're having there based on exactly what Tommy just spoke about, and that's confidentiality, because there's nobody going to go there with knowing that I have a problem and I'm going to get fired if I go and tell them my problem, and that's the fact. But you know, there are people out there, and Mike, in my eyes, is probably the biggest success story there ever was.
I promise Mr. Robito, and then we'll come back to you, and then Mr. Marks. Yes.
If we go back a few steps, before a person gets to that point where he needs a crisis intervention team, communication is first and foremost. First and foremost, knowing your men. Being able to go on a unit and talk to your boys and say, what's going on? How are we doing today? If there's anything you need from me, you come and see me. Because I've had a lot of guys that needed to sit down and talk with me or whoever before they reach that point. So working as a team, I don't know how often the superintendent goes in the control rooms, but I used to go in the control rooms quite often to know my people, to know the habits, to see what they're all about. Let them know that I had an open door anytime you want to talk about anything at all, whether it be a problem at home, a problem at work, whatever it may be. So maybe if we work together as a team, we might diminish the amount of people that get into that position where they might commit suicide. That's just a thought.
I think Mr. Coppinger, then Mr. Sorry, Chief Coppinger.
Just one thing I forgot to add, though. One of the critical issues with an EAP program is having procedures in place so if something happens for the police out in the street, for the correctional officers in the jail, a traumatic moment, maybe it's a prisoner suicide or a vicious fight that the correctional officer is involved with, or something traumatic that's going to affect him mentally. You have to have diffusings and debriefings following it. One would occur within 24 to 36 hours afterwards. Just letting the correctional officer know that these are natural feelings. You're going to experience these thoughts over the next couple of days. You're not going to sleep. These things are going to happen. And then a couple of days later, you'll have debriefings where you're going to have professionals come in and sit down with you, and you can talk. As I said before, we've done it with police officers for about 10 years now, and it's worked very, very well, and it does work in confidentiality. We have a strict policy that we follow. Like I said, we negotiated with the union. The only time management knows about it if it affects their job performance. But we have a private company, Bridgewell, specifically Project Cope. I get a report from them on an annual basis, and you look at the numbers, no names, just numbers. And as I said, it's open to the individual police officers and their immediate families. But the numbers of folks that take advantage of it is surprisingly high. I'm proud to say it works. because we have feedback, but that's something that you really, truly need. But again, particularly if there's an incident in the jail, you have to have those meetings afterwards to at least let them know what's going to happen, so they don't think it's just me. It's a natural reaction to a traumatic event.
Thank you. Mr. Marks?
Much like corrections has evolved over the years, health and wellness for staff has also evolved over the years. When I first started, if you were to tell a deputy that you were feeling something from something you saw, they'd tell you to suck it up and go back to the unit. And over time, that's changed. And Sheriff Contusion in Middlesex County has been a huge catalyst to that. A few years ago, he had one of his officers shoot themselves on the perimeter of the facility. And that, he had a few had committed suicide prior to that. And that really sparked him to start to get the Mass Sheriff's Association involved and start the program that he does over there. So we've come a long way in Essex County as well. We have an EAP program. It's confidential unless we order them to go. We do sometimes order people to go because we see that there's an issue. The management has cards with them that they'll give to people if they see there's an issue. We check sick time issues. Does somebody have an overabundance of sick time and it's new to their career? Maybe they need to be looked at. Additional to that, we have a critical incident team that helps the men and women when something happens inside the facility. But thanks to Sheriff Contusion, we started a peer-based group so a correctional officer can actually talk to a correctional officer instead of a captain or a deputy. And that's relatively new. We're getting more and more people trained, but it's a huge issue nationally in corrections and policing that suicide is very prevalent. So we recognize that. I applaud Sheriff Contusion for his efforts in bringing that to the Mass Sheriff's Association and moving that to the front of the table, and he's done a great job.
From the side, William and Mr. Russell. Well, for William Administrators.
You know, I worked on the units, like I said, I managed the special management unit we have one of the most difficult inmates in the department. And when I started, we didn't have stress counseling or any of that stuff that we have today. I think it should be outside the department, not inside in the department. It should be more equipped to meeting outside. And this is something I wrote at the beginning, again, of the campaign. And this is what I put. My plan is to work with the department's union to identify current deficiencies relative to officer safety, stress, morale, and policy that affect the daily operation of the facility. I want to increase training to the members of the crisis team in order to provide quality service to staff involved in traumatic and stressful incidents. As a former officer and sergeant supervisor, I deeply understand the officers' need and, more importantly, their stressful working conditions. And I'll give you for experience, I worked 11 years out there in the community, battling the opioid crisis. Let me tell you something. I have one of the highest rate of busting people dealing drugs. 11.5 pounds of crystal meth that was coming to our city, 99.9 pure. 35 years the guy pleaded. 300,000 MDMA pills coming out of Canada to here. 22 kilos out of Lawrence. And I gotta tell you what's sad about this whole story. I can sit in a room with a bad guy, or I can sit in a restaurant with a bad guy and get them to talk and sell me drugs. I was good at it. I put my life in the lines for my family in my department. After today, my department hasn't even recognized my family in a simple letter for all the time, those 11 years that I helped our community deal with the problem. And up to today, that department hasn't even called William Castro upstairs to say thank you for it. So you want to talk about stressful situations? I can tell you about it. Thank you.
Mr. Russell, before we get to you, I'm not exactly sure you've answered the question, though. The question was, how would you help the officers who are having a hard time? I mean, you said training.
Oh, you got to help them. You got to bring training. That's most important. Counseling to the outside of the department, because if you do it inside the department, let me tell you something. Nobody's going to talk to you. I don't care what friend it is. They're not going to talk to you. I was blessed enough that when I was an officer in there, supervisor, I was managing the special management unit, and I'm not afraid to say it here. Jerry was there, and he was one of the few that I was able to come up and talk to him, but no one else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm fascinated to hear the final answer on this, because you're someone who's lost a limb in the line of duty. You've put your life on as a DEA agent. You're someone who has handled these stressful situations. Do you agree, disagree with what's been said here tonight?
Well, I've been involved in, on the perimeter shooting instances and agents taking their own lives and things like that. It's unfortunately, it's always been part of the in the law enforcement community. I think in the last maybe 10, 15 years, it's starting to come out with, it's okay to deal with these problems openly. EPA programs, I think, is essential. The stress level in law enforcement, anyway, is always high. And in reference to Essex County Sheriff's Department, the EPA program, I would like to have it expanded, and to the point that even getting faith-based or even service organizations involved. Because a lot of times people have different levels of comfort zone. We don't know what goes on in individuals' homes. It could be a matter of depression, domestic violence, because correctional officers are people too. They have problems. And I'm sure that what goes on inside the institutions may add up to it. And there are things going on. We have to have a safety valve in reference for officers to be able to, to at least go to someone and talk to them in confidential. I believe EPA is only obligated to notify management if this person is going to harm himself or others. Outside of that, everything should be confidential. On my job, we were just allowed to take sick time or a vacation day, no explanation. And the people didn't even know they were visiting, EPA doctors, stuff like that. I'm in full support of having that type of program and working with the unions in that to have those issues resolved. It could be something, again, we can connect with faith-based organizations, church leaders, and things like that to enhance this process. But for me personally, the EPA program had a positive effect on myself and my family. So talking as an individual who was obligated to go because of the job and everything else. And I was one of those old guys, like, I don't need to talk about it. I got this, don't worry about it. But when you get there, you realize that it's essential support. So I'm very sensitive to that. And in my administration, officer safety, training, evaluation, filtering, all those things we made priority. And sometimes I want to say too is that there are a lot of people who want to get involved in law enforcement, want to work in this profession. A lot of individuals may not be cut out to do that. And I believe also too that there should be a filtering process when one is applying for the job. I've actually done recruiting. I've interviewed people, and some people don't realize what the job entails. I think that's really important. Not to say that they can't do it, but some people, might be able to handle, the daily stress and pressure. And when I was recruiting for the federal government. We even got their families involved. Say, listen, this is what the job's about. This is going to happen. There's going to be things going on. You know, can we do this? So I think that's important.
Thank you. I'm not sure how many of you read the Valley Patriot. We have done extensive stories on the current sheriff and the current sheriff's administration. And I'd like this to just be as quick answers as you guys can give. When we found out that they were holding pretrial detainees at the farm, which is a violation of the law, and we called and we talked to the sheriff's press person, I believe it was Paul Flynn at the time, he outright lied to us and said it wasn't going on when we had pictures of it going on. When we called the press office of the sheriff and asked him about the lack of supervision of the sober house on Crack Corner on Oxford Street in Lawrence, where we did video surveillance for 3 nights and saw sheriff's department employees dropping inmates off, getting in their personal cars, leaving the sheriff's van there, and leaving to make it look like they were on property. We called them and we were told that none of that was going on. We were lied to outright. As the sheriff, you're going to have to work with the press. And I just want a real quick answer from you guys as to how it is you're going to handle the press yourself, and when you have people working for you who are deceptive with the press to make things look better than they are, how you will deal with those individuals who work for you. And I guess I saw a hand first, so I'll let you go first, Mr. Castro. But I want you to be real quick because we have 2 more questions to get to.
First, we shouldn't be lying to the press. That's number one. Transparency is very important in trust within the department and the community we represent. Very important. I don't agree we should have pre-trial inmates in a pre-release program like that. And I'll give you an example. Inmates lock stuff, drugs, all the time. If you want to have a successful program, such as the pre-release program, you shouldn't have pre-trial inmates because you don't know what they have on the body bringing in. The same thing that goes on now, coming into a Middleton facility. You know, we have x-rays machine, use them. We lock, we don't use them. But we shouldn't lie to the press. Absolutely not. Transparency is most important. Trust. It goes back to respect. Once you lose that respect, it's over.
The second part of the question is, what would you do to someone who worked for you, who was your press person, who lied to the press?
You gotta have policies in place, and it's gotta be disciplined. Disciplinary actions has to be in place. If you did the wrong thing, first of all, no one should be talking to the media. We should have a designator talking to the media so that people don't lie. Because you're gonna have a person that's not gonna be working in the best interest of the department. It's very obvious they're going to try to lie to the media. So you have to address those issues with a person that you have in the department in place to talk to the media. Now, if you did talk to the media and you weren't supposed to, you should be disciplined for it.
I don't like that answer at all. All right.
I'm sorry.
We want everyone to talk to the media, whether you're supposed to or not, off the record. Mr. Russell?
I would have a PIO officer in place and have direct access. I'll have an open and transparent administration based off of integrity and professionalism. And good, bad, or indifferent, whatever happens, you know, will be full disclosure of what's going on. And if someone under my administration is caught doing something wrong, everything else, you know, their job will be in jeopardy. Integrity is very, very, very important to me. If you don't have integrity, you're not going to have a very functioning professional department. I don't care what else follows. You have to have, let's be the cornerstone of law enforcement integrity.
Mr. Robito?
In regards to the sheriff's department, it's real simple. The spokesman for the department follows the lead of the sheriff. He says what the sheriff tells him to say. There's a lot of wrongdoings going on in the sheriff's department, and the halfway houses is definitely one big part of it. He only passes on the message that the sheriff tells him to pass on. So it would be hard for me to discipline a guy that I told to lie because I'm doing something wrong. So the bottom line is, if I'm doing the right thing, he's going to tell the truth, because the truth never changes, and there'll be no discipline.
So you flipped the question on me, and that's actually good. It made me think. So it may not even be the spokesperson's fault we should hold the sheriff responsible.
100%.
Do you guys on this side agree with that? Let's go first, Mr. Marks.
I'd just like to first clarify. I'd just like to first clarify that it's not against the law to put pretrial inmates at the CAC. It's a very important piece of the reentry initiative and what's happening in this country, the over-incarceration of people. And it's giving people that are on a low bail and minor charges an opportunity to not be in jail, as Mr. Castro talked about earlier. But in terms of, I would have a very good media spokesperson in place, and nothing would get released without my approval and the approval of my management staff. And we would tell the 100% truth, and we would hold back anything that would interfere with an ongoing investigation, but everything else would be crystal clear to the press.
Chief?
I'm sorry, can I, as a follow-up to that, did Tony give you his resume yet?
Not yet.
I'm pretty sure that nobody on this stage is going to be hiring me as their press person. Maybe Chief might, who knows?
No, 3 words: transparency, accountability, and integrity. The sheriff's going to set the tone for the agency. He's going to be the leader. He has to have those 3 traits. You have to have a working relationship with the press. You have to respect the press. They have a job to do, and they're intelligent. They know how to find sources. They know how to turn things over. You have to be upfront with them. Tell them what's going on, because some days you're going to want to use them as an asset if you want to get messages out, information out. And as somebody said before, you know, if you lie to them, it's just going to make it worse. It's going to compound the problem, and it's going to ruin your integrity. So again, from the sheriff's, from his point of view, he sets the tone for the agency. Transparency, accountability, and integrity. He has to have those 3 things in today's society.
Attorney Riley?
Yes, thank you. You know, a lot of times I talk about a judge making a mistake or in a decision. This business of corrections, and as well as in the entire criminal justice system. If I worked at McDonald's and I undercooked a burger or overcooked it, you get another one. This job can be a life or death job. You let the wrong person out, you're not supervising the right person, you're not doing it the right way. The consequences cannot be reversed. I take it very seriously. I take my job very seriously as a lawyer, as a criminal defense lawyer. I take my job as sheriff. I would take my job extremely seriously, and I expect everyone else under me to take their job seriously. That means transparency. That means we're all on the same page. That means that I am proud of the work I do, so why should I hide it? But this is I can't overstate the importance of corrections in working with people who have the potential of harming people. And things have to be done in the right way. And I would take that oath as seriously as I take my oath to advocate for people as zealously as a lawyer. It's not a job where you can send back to him, you know. So for me, transparency, honesty, but I have no tolerance for people who are taking money from a job and not doing their job. If I'm doing my job as sheriff, I want people to see it. I want them to know what I'm doing. I want them to know what I'm doing, because if I'm doing it right, I should be proud of it.
No, you may be correct. I'm not saying you're wrong. For my own clarification, I'd like to know.
There was a change to Chapter 127, 20B, that allows the sheriff to send pretrial inmates home if he chooses, even though there's a bail on him. The sheriff decided that he wasn't going to take the risk to send them home, but we needed to kind of control our pretrial population. Our pretrial population is 70% of the population in the Middleton facility, and a lot of the men are held on relatively low bails. So we made a decision that we were going to open up a unit up at the Correctional Alternative Center and move pretrial inmates there. They go through the same process that the other inmates go through, a 5-person classification board. The stipulations in the law don't allow for certain charges to go there. We've put even a closer criteria on it, where we don't send people with bails that are over $10,000, and we make sure that they don't have a significant criminal history. You know, people have said we send people there that are on no bails. That's not true. People that do time, maybe they get a year in jail. 6 months to serve, and then they go out on probation for 6 months, and they get a dirty urine. They owe 6 months back at the correctional facility. They may have done time at the farm during that 6-month period. So now they come back to us, they're on a probation bed, but the most they're looking at is 6 months. So we're not going to tie up a hard bed for them, we're going to set them up. But there's still pre-trial until probation violates them, which could take a couple of weeks. So,
Thank you for the clarification. That actually makes it...
if you check his record, he came in as a probation violator.
He had no bail. He had a no bail on him. No bail.
A probation mitt does not have bail posted on it. They only owe the amount of time that was suspended on the time. So if you
So
take
this is a
look at
lie. This is a lie.
it's misinformation.
I'm your spokesman.
Not my spokesman. I don't have a spokesman.
You were the spokesman for your...
He's part of the sheriff's team. I run the correctional facility. He's not part of my team. I have no jurisdiction over him.
I'm
Tom.
sorry, he's on your team, but he was a spokesman at the time. This is what he gave to the Eagle Tribune.
I'm just running to fight it out, Robito.
I have no explanation for why he said that, but because you used that in another forum that we had, you used that same one, and just to make sure I was correct, I checked the record on him. It was a probation violator.
I guess it's all
Tom, I don't think you should have pre-trial inmates in there. Absolutely not. Because you have to have, listen to this one for a minute. You have inmates in there, they're going to be hitting the streets, they need to be rehabilitated with programs. And you're mixing them up with different inmates that they haven't even gone through the system, they haven't even detoxed for wherever they come from, just because we want a free space at Middleton. That's insane.
Well, without fairness to Mr. Marks, though, I think what he's saying is that they are at the farm, but they're segregated. They're not in with the other. That's what he's saying, right?
They sleep in a totally separate area. They're all walking around like property with everybody. It's a separate unit. Yes.
No, hold on one second, because I worked there. I worked at the CAC. Trust me when I tell you, they're not segregated. They are not. They get free to run a room from one place to the other. If they get caught off guard, you just give them a write-off. They're absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. They cross from one place to the other, to the sentencing inmates, to the pre-trial. Trust me, I worked there. Jerry, you worked there.
100% correct.
I just said that. I just agree with that. They sleep in their own separate area, and they're out on the compound with everybody else. These are men that can't pay $1,000 bail, and they have to come to jail, and it costs us significant amounts of money to be in there in hard cells. So it's a risk business, and if we weren't willing to take a risk, we wouldn't have a CAC. We'd have everybody in Middleton, and we'd have 1,600 guys there sleeping on the floor in the gym, but we have to have re-entry plans. We have to get these men and women the tools they need to come back to the communities better people. And just because someone can't make $1,000 bail doesn't mean they have to be in Middleton. Just because they have 6 months hanging over their head, and the last 3 months that they did before they got probation was doing fine at the farm. They were a great inmate, they just used on the street, and they produced a dirty urine. Doesn't mean they have to come back and take up a bed in Middleton. So that's why we do it. It's a risk business. Does it always work? No, it doesn't. But I can tell you, it's a much higher risk to leave these men and women locked up with nothing and then just release them to the street, to their buddies that they were hanging with no tools. That's a much bigger risk, and that's why re-entry is a national thing. It's something that's really happening, re-entry. It's not just care, custody, and control. It's care, custody, control, re-entry. And anyone who qualifies for our re-entry needs to be given a shot. We have criteria. We have 5 people that sit in a room and talk to these inmates, and if it's a 5-0 vote, he goes, or she goes.
Tom.
Very quickly, we've got 2 more questions to ask.
This is kind of, I would like to get an answer actually from the superintendent. Is it true that 5 sentenced inmates that went through the drug and alcohol program in Middleton, OD'd, and were taken to the hospital down the farm, and 3 days later, 2 more. Is that true or false?
That's true. Relapse is part of addiction.
Thank you. 7 inmates, OD'd, and peer pressure control.
Christine Morabito, I really hate to break this up because it's going so well, but you have a question.
My question isn't quite as contentious. In the past, due to space concerns, female inmates have been housed at MCI Framingham, which is a state prison. We now have a facility in Salisbury called Women in Transition. Can you talk a little bit about how that's working out and what you would do to improve it or change it?
Sheriff Cousins is the first sheriff to come along and actually make a facility for women. When I first became an attorney, all the women went to Framingham State Prison. They really shouldn't be going there. But what Frank Cousins has done, that facility, I've been to the Women in Transition many times to visit clients. It's a very successful program. But what the sheriff has also done, and this is really important because as sheriff, if I have the privilege of being the next sheriff, my first priority is that no woman will go to Framingham. No woman will go to Framingham. They will go. So the sheriff has taken another step. With these detox units, as of July, as a month ago, he started a detox for women in Middleton, inside the facility. The whole idea of the detox programs, the whole idea is to divert people from incarceration, if in fact that's the right way to go. So in other words, I don't know if this was explained to people, but the detox programs, one for men that was open on December 7th of 2015, and 7 or 8 months ago, and now the new one for women. Basically, if I have a client who has a drug and alcohol problem, and I say to the judge, I want them to go to the detox unit. Well, they go to the detox unit, and they're dressed in, I've done the entire tour with the sheriff, they're dressed in hospital attire. They are doing 4 or 5 meetings a day. They meet with psychiatrists, social workers. There's a plan drawn up in those 28 days. This isn't a detox, like a 3-day detox where someone gets clean, and then you release them. The detox unit is really an intensive program in order to guide the courts and in order to guide the judge to make a sentence that's appropriate for the person and for the crime. So now we have a unit inside the jail that's now taking more women away from Framingham. And the whole idea of that is to have something written up for the judge in 28 days. And the judges have been following that. Because it's so intensive, and the recommendations have not been easy on both sides. I've talked to DAs, and DAs are saying the same thing. We all agree it's not easy, but when you're dealing with addicts, you're dealing with people that really need supervision, that really need help, that really need accountability. It's working. I mean, there've been people who have passed away through addiction that have gone through the program and they've gotten out. But they go to halfway houses most of the time rather than going into jail. It's the trend to move people away from being warehoused, and specifically women. Unfortunately, there are still some women that are going to Framingham and staying there. And I have to say, from my experience of 34 years as a defense attorney, it's really sad. There's something even more sad going up to Framingham and seeing a mother, an addict who's a mother, in Framingham State Prison. It would be my first priority as sheriff, is to make sure that no woman goes to state prison unless they're a felon. They do not belong in Framingham State Prison.
The Women in Transition Center has been open for 14 years, and it houses 24 women that come from Framingham. They're classified. They have the same criteria as the men that go to the Correctional Alternative Center. The Correctional Alternative Center holds 340 men, and we have 24 women that we're able to service at the Women in Transition. It's very successful. We're able to reconnect women. When women come to jail, normally it's much further down the road than the men come to jail. They're given additional opportunities because they're the primary caregiver to their children, and the judges try to make sure that they're out in the community. So when they do come to jail, they've lost everything. So when we can finally get them over to the women in transition, we can try to work with DCF and reconnect them with their families, with their children, with their mothers and fathers. They can visit outside on a picnic table. It's a much better place for them to be, but it's only 24 women. We have 17 women that are on electronic monitoring out in the community, whether they be in a halfway house or at home. So it's a very small percentage. Today there's 127 women in Framingham. And that's a shame, because they're really not getting, Framingham concentrates on the state inmates, and the county inmates are really more of a nuisance for them. So they don't get the programs that they really need. However, we don't have any place for 127 women right now. So part of the master plan that was put together by Governor Patriot calls for a regional women's facility where 3 or 4 counties would send their women, and it would be, somebody's going to have to figure out who's going to run it, which sheriff's department's going to run it, but it would be much more conducive to the women, and we hope that we can get that done. But again, everything is money driven, and certainly Essex County is not going to get a facility for 127 women, but if you get 500 women in 4 different counties, maybe the state will have an appetite to build it. So we hope that they will, and we continue to work on that every year, and it gets pushed off and pushed off. So I think we're doing a pretty good job at trying to pull some of the women back so that we can service them, so they can be where they live, so that their families can visit them and not have to drive all the way out to Framingham. But we have a lot more to do.
Just briefly, I do support what the Sheriff's Office is doing now between the detox and the programs up in Salisbury. I think a key to that is the programs that the women are involved with that are geared towards their needs, whether it be mothering, parenting, their social skills, getting them back into society as productive members, as we talked about, at the very beginning of this forum. The women have specific needs, and the programs that are there have to be addressed to their specifications. I do agree with what Mike just said about having a regional facility. I know sometimes that's another money issue there, but I think that's one of those issues where you have to just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, because the further away the mothers are from their families, it's really going to start to harm the children that are back in the home. As long as we can keep some contact, particularly close contact there, I think in the end it will be better for all.
Unfortunately, the women have been forgotten for many years. There should be more programs in place for the female. They should be close to home, to their family, and we should do a better job keeping them connected to the family and the community. Bracelet programs, like we have in place now, but we should have more. We should have more females going out. Think about it. Like Paul Russell says, once your kid gets away from you, social services take it, where the kid end up, God only knows. You see the news, nobody's trusted anymore. So why don't give it back to the mother? Keep the mother in touch with the family. I mean, if we got a felony charge, like the chief says, yeah, keep it incarcerated. But if other than that, I think we have done a horrible job taking our females and throwing them out and not providing the same programs that we up to date are providing to the inmates. We should.
I think bed space is a rare commodity in the Essex County Sheriff's Department. There's 2 issues, major issues: mental health and females. We have to prioritize. There's no bed space in Middleton for either one. So I agree that we need to open up regional lockups for females, but we also need more bed space for mental health patients, because there's quite a few mental health issues going on. And unfortunately, as a jail, we're forced to incarcerate them and not give them the proper care as a result of the lack of bed space.
As I said at the beginning of the evening, we have some very talented people on here, actually 6 very talented people. And there's a lot of experience here. A lot of them have a ton of experience in law enforcement. With that, and we spoke tonight about transparency, integrity, accountability, and budgetary responsibility. And I guess I'm looking for a quick answer because the night is getting late. If you're elected as the High Sheriff of Essex County, would you forego your current public pension to be paid as a High Sheriff?
Yeah, who wants that one? All right, Jerry, go ahead.
In my case, I'm retired. I've got a nice,
Jerry, can I interrupt you? Just real quick. The reason I asked that is the Democratic frontrunner for Worcester County Sheriff opted not to do that. He was a retired state trooper, and ultimately it did cost him, I think, the nomination.
I have a good retirement. I work part-time for security for the IRS. I really don't need the job, but I feel I can make a difference and come back. After 34 years, I guess I still got a passion for it. My retirement would freeze. I have no motive, no financial motive. There are some people here that would gain financially. I would go back to my old pension. It would freeze. Once I left my term as sheriff, I'd go back to my old pension. So it's looking down the road, I go back to where I started. But if I can make a difference, that's far more important.
Mr. Marks?
I happened to see that question this morning on the Facebook page. So what I did today is I talked to a retirement guru who tells me that if I'm fortunate enough to win the election, I could retire the day after the election. And then I could collect my pension and then collect the full salary for the Essex County Sheriff's Department. There's been a lot of talk about pledges and people making a pledge, and I would pledge that I will continue to work for the Sheriff's Department. I will not retire. I will transfer directly over from superintendent to sheriff and take the raise that comes with that position, and that would be my stance.
Was that on my Facebook page, you said?
I believe so, yes.
Well, it wasn't directed at you, though.
No, but I knew it was coming, so I made sure that I knew that I was informed.
I just want to make sure that nobody thinks it needs to be unfair.
Chief, I'm sure everybody's waiting for my answer on this one, because I know it's been on Facebook before, but I'm going to give you an honest answer. I think it's an unfair comparison. I've worked in public service for the police department for over 3 decades. I put 110% effort into every day I've worked, and I paid into that pension system over the years. It's a job that when I do retire, it will be a job in my past, and that's what the pension is for. It will provide a pension to me for the years of service that I paid in. Moving over, I'm running not to just get elected, but to do a job. To do a job that I will give another 110% effort every single day, because it's a tough job. It's going to be a 7-day-a-week job to get the sheriff's office back on track where it should be. And I think that's the way it should be done. I'm going to answer your question with a question, though, and just a comparison to give you something to think about. If somebody leaves the United States Marine Corps after putting in 30 years of service to our military, and then they come back and they go to work for the United States Post Office, are you going to tell them they can't take the second salary? I don't know. That's my position. I would take my salary, my pension, and yes, I would take the salary, because I think in order to do the job correctly, it's going to take that many hours, and I think I've deserved that with my career.
Fair enough. I actually, I get a very small stipend for my years in the state service over 13 years to help pay for the health insurance, but I'd forego that. It's less than $300, it's about $300 a month. I'd forego that for sure. But to go to Chief Coppinger's statement, this is a loophole in the pension system that Chief Coppinger is going to take advantage of. And let me just say why.
Were you the one that asked the question on Facebook?
Yes.
I was joking. You really were the one that asked the question on Facebook?
I asked to have this as a question because this is unfair. I put my name on it. I
I just didn't see it.
No, I know, it was on there. I put it on there today. Because I think it's really important. It's really important for all the people that are out there that work for the state and get a pension. They can only make about $17,000 a year, and then the money they have to start paying, not dollar for dollar, but they have to start paying some money back into the pension system because of the taxpayers. This loophole was made for elected officials by elected officials so that they can get a full pension, unlike anyone else in the pension system, so they can get a full pension and a full salary. And it's, number one, I understand what the chief's saying, but that's comparing apples and oranges. Everyone else in the system cannot do that. So Chief Coppinger would be making roughly, approximately, almost $300,000 a year for a $151,000 a year job. And I find that to be unacceptable, not necessarily for his, because of him, but as a loophole.
Settle down now. You're going to wait. Chief, he's talking about you. I want to give you an opportunity to respond if you want.
If you think about this, public official from New Hampshire can come down and work in this job. Somebody can retire from the GE, come in and work for this job. Somebody can retire from anywhere in the private sector. They've earned their pension, they put their time in. I paid over 39 years into the pension system, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I've worked very hard to get where I am. My resume and my qualifications reflect that. I've earned my pension and I'm proud of that. I'm not going to step aside from that. I'm looking to do a job. I think I have the qualifications. I think I am the best candidate to do the job for the Sheriff's Department. I will leave it up to the voters. Let them know. I talked about transparency. I don't have a problem talking about this in public. You know, it's something when it's on Facebook and sliding around in the underbelly of Facebook, it's wrong. I'm actually glad it's come out. But put it out there, put my resume out there, put my ideas on the thing, and let the voters decide. That's where I stand.
Chief, as a follow-up to that, and I agree with you 100% as far as the people going from New Hampshire coming down here, and I'll tell you, one of the things that we run into all the time is that you'll have police officers who retire from New Hampshire. They'll come because they don't get health care, as you talked about, Ed, from their employer in the city or town that they live in New Hampshire, because it's optional. So if they don't get that, they come down to UMass, get a job at UMass, whatever, Lowell, let's use Lowell as the excuse this week. They go down there, they work 10 years, they get a pension, and most of them don't work 10 years, they go out on a disability, which ultimately hurts our pension system.
You're not supposed to agree or disagree with people. It's supposed to be Jerry Robito, if you want to add some more fun to this.
Yeah, I got to say this. I live in Lawrence. I don't live in Lynn, but I'll say that if the chief is doing such a great job in Lynn, which I'm sure he is, and I lived in Lynn, and he chose to give up the job as chief of police, I'd be bold. I mean, you're here to serve and protect us. Now you want to move on so you can make more money? Where's your heart, your loyalties to your city? That's my question.
Well, 1 second, please. Jerry, as I said before, I'm not running to get elected. I'm running to do a job. My qualifications and my resume will show we've had great successes with our programs in Lynn. Prevention, intervention, and rehabilitation and treatment. We're doing a good job. Crime is down 10% over the last 5 years. It's down 5% this year alone. That record reflects on what the Lynn Police Department is doing under my leadership. I want to take my successes and take them county-wide to help other people. We've had a lot of discussion here in this forum tonight about stuff internally in the jail, and that's good because it had to happen. But we're also forgetting about the 750,000 citizens in this Commonwealth, and in this county, who become victims of crime and want to feel safe and secure in their homes. That discussion needs to be held, obviously not in the next couple minutes because we're almost done, but those are the people I represent. Those are the people who I know what they need, what they want, based on my 33 years of law enforcement experience, and those are the ones I'm trying to represent countywide. I'm taking my successes in Lynn, hopefully to the countywide, to make them more successful.
Can I just say something? Crime is down crime statistics are down everywhere. The crime in the United States has gone down, thank God.
Settle down.
But let me just say this. From my experience, the people that want to get drugs, they still are going at one of the major places, is Lynn. It's still a problem. There has not. I have been advocating for the Gloucester Angel program to expand throughout this county, and that one of those places that I want to expand it is Lynn. We need to take innovative approaches because from what I can see, there hasn't been a whole lot of success in dealing with the drug problem in Lynn.
Serve your ball if you want to talk, otherwise I'll...
Eddie, you're a defense attorney. In fact, I think your specialty is OUI cases. All right, we can sling the mud back and forth, Ed. First of all, I'm glad we're doing it in public versus, as I said before, on the underbelly of the Facebook page. That's what you've done in the past. Yes, you have. Crime in Lynn is down. Lynn is a better place. Take a ride downtown Lynn and see what's going on. There are restaurants opening up, there's shows in City Hall, people are moving back into Lynn, good things are happening. We have our behavioral health unit in Lynn. You've mentioned the ANGEL program since day one, and you always say you're the only one that supports treatment and rehabilitation. I have yet to hear anyone on this stage speak against treatment and rehabilitation. You promote the ANGEL program. It's a good program. I'm not going to deny that. If it works for Gloucester, that's good. But there are a lot of other good programs throughout the county, including what we have in Lynn. We have 3 people, civilians we hired, 2 clinicians trained in substance abuse and mental illness, and 1 caseworker. They work inside our department with our officers, and they're out on the street every day. They're making improvements. This epidemic is everywhere throughout the Commonwealth and the entire Eastern Seaboard. I will stand on the merits of the Lynn Police Department and the successes that we've had recently. We're doing one hell of a job up there, and we will continue to do that, despite what happens with the sheriff's race here.
I just want to say one thing here. There's a difference between what I'm saying about innovative approaches working and what's happening in Lynn. My comments have in no way, shape, or form been any type of characterization against the people of Lynn. I am really proud to say that I have a lot of supporters in Lynn. I have a lot of friends in Lynn. I believe that Lynn is moving in the right direction. But when we're talking about the drug problem, when we're talking about crime, I have not seen, under your leadership, any difference.
Well, I just want to know why you guys weren't this feisty at the beginning of the debate.
It changed, and we haven't even got a chance to talk. I don't think it's fair, so Russell has to talk and
Paul, go ahead.
break the fight. We gotta break the fight, guys.
I just want to know why you guys weren't this feisty at the beginning of the debate. Yeah, go ahead. Paul.
I just want to address the pension issue and the pay. Full disclosure, I'm retired. Federal Justice Department pension, and I'm running for Essex County Sheriff because I want to make this county better than what it is. I went into this thing with very optimistic ideas and what I could bring to the table. I disagree with the chief that he feels that he's the most experienced law enforcement specialist. I believe I am. And saying that, I would do this job for zero. I wouldn't draw a paycheck. I would, that's how committed I am to this thing. I want to do the job. I don't want a job. And that's how I feel. Most people are running the they want a job. I want to do the job. In Andover alone last year, we lost 11 young people, individuals, to heroin overdose and addiction. 11. One was young, 16 years old. That's the first thing got me motivated in this whole thing. That's great. So that's my agenda. If I elect the sheriff, I want to collect a paycheck. That's my agenda to this.
I think people are hoping to collect the education tonight. I'm glad we're doing this. Mr. Castro, last word on this, and then we're going to do a wrap up.
Well, for me, it's kind of easy. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. I'm 48. I've still got a full career ahead of me. I mean, I can retire in 3 years, but I choose not to. Like I said, money for me is not an issue. I can stay where I'm at with the money I am at. I have never complained about money. And it's all about helping the people. If you heart is in the right place about implementing programs in the community, they're going to be very successful, helping you officers deal with the stress level. It shouldn't be about the money. It should be about your community, which is the most important thing that you can ever give back to your community. I'm a humble guy. Like I say, I'm poor. I'm not going anywhere. I'm gonna die poor, and I don't care if you bury me in a shoebox. It's that simple. It's very, very simple. It shouldn't be about the money. But if you, if you work hard for your money, yeah, go for it. I respect everyone's opinion and everyone's decision. I mean, every head is a world. But I can tell you what I'm saying. I don't care about the money. I care about the people. That's why I say people, no politics.
I'd like you guys to wrap up. I'd like you guys to give, and I'm not going to time it, but if you could just keep it to like 2 minutes or close to 2 minutes for a closing statement. And in your closing statement, I want to know if you win and you're the primary winner, will you come back and do a debate like this in the final? We'll start. Who went first on the first round? You went first on the first round, so we'll go Jerry, and then we'll come back this way.
As I said before, I'm very comfortable in my life right now, retired. I work 12 hours a week. Do I need people say, what are you, crazy? You want to come back? And you want to put that into, I'm passionate about the job. The place is broken, it needs to be fixed. We got to stop the revolving door with inmates coming and going. We got to get these guys aftercare once they get out of jail. I think I'm the person for that job. And I don't need the job, but I think I'm the person for that job.
You didn't answer my question. My question, if you win and you're the nominee, will you come back and do a debate like this in the final?
Enjoy this. Absolutely.
Paul?
If I'm the nominee, I would come back. And basically, I feel that I'm the most qualified person to in this race. You'll find me more passionate and dedicated in addressing the issues that are pending the Sheriff's Department. We need more transparency, developing programs, realigning of the Sheriff's Department in general, address the compounding issue of heroin addiction in this county, both follow-up care, post and pre-care for inmates. I can't emphasize to you how much important this is to do this. We have to stem the tide. We have an opportunity right now to make a difference and make a change. I'm the only candidate who has been somewhat critical of the current administration. I think it's, at best, has been dysfunctional, at worst, totally mismanaged. Again, I'm the only one who feels that the sheriff has done an atrocious job, particularly under the Republican administration. As a Democrat, I'm appalled. As an citizen of Essex County, I'm disgusted. And I'm here to make a positive change, positive direction. And again, I want to get this thing done.
William?
You know, finally, Paul, you and I are probably going to disagree on this one. I know Paul for a very long time. We worked together with the DEA, fine undercover, as I am. When I started my department in 1999, it was very stressful there. It was not accountability in our department. First day of the job, they would throw the keys at you and see you later. Officers disrespecting inmates and inmates disrespecting officers. Like I say, no accountability. And now we have that. We have accountability for some of the actions. There's still room for improvement. Therefore, I can't criticize what the sheriff has done in there, because trust me when I tell you, you're dealing with 678 officers on our department. You're dealing with a large amount of inmates, 1,500 inmates in our department, different programs. I mean, it is a tough challenge, and you are basically counting on your people to literally take their shirt off their back and help you move things along. What I'm going to tell you is I will come back, because this is the best debate I have been into. The other one was very hot for those who have been out there. And I'm going to read this, and this is a 2-minute. Okay, quick, very quick. Easy. As the sheriff, I want to change the way we help inmates. Instead, I'm pretty sure you guys went to my Facebook page and read some of that. Instead of spending money on inmate incarceration and prison healthcare, I want to begin institutional reform programs, creating comprehensive trade school system, carpentry, plumbing, mechanic, and everything else that's going to help the inmates stay connected to our community and have a better chance of society. You have to if anything that you have to do, improving the overall quality of life of the inmates by keeping them connected to the children, to the families, and to the community. That's what our responsibility is. We should work with that. Please, take it into consideration. The next sheriff that's going to come in, it has to have all the qualities. It has to have people skills. It has to have come from the community, gone through the struggles that these people out there. I'm talking about the community and the inmate population and the officers that work on our department. That's what's most important. We need someone that can connect. We need that bridge. My name is William Castro. I'm being elected sheriff of Essex County, if God helps it. Thank you.
Attorney O'Reilly?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Tom. I'm the different candidate here.
Did they?
Well, I'm all about treatment. I'm all about recovery. I want to take the Sheriff's Department in a new direction. I have a new vision for the Sheriff's Department. Prevention, intervention, and successful reintegration. 27 years I've been in recovery. For 34 years I've been working with people with substance abuse. It is the crux of what our problems are with the House of Correction, with people going to the House of Corrections and people being released. We need to use innovative programs. I've said it before, I am all about using innovative programs, about leading this department in new directions, with new programs, more treatment, and with a better attitude. I'm not running for this office for promotion. I'm not running for this office for a pension grab. I'm running for this office because I care about people, because I care about my children, because I care about my grandchildren, and because I care about our communities. And that's why I'm running for the Sheriff's Department, for the chief job of sheriff of this county, because I want to make a difference. Thank you.
I don't think you answered my question.
Oh! Yes. I'll be back if I have the good fortune of getting through this. If I get off stage in one piece.
Chief, it's up to you.
I'll answer the question first. Yes, I'll be back.
Thank you.
When I made my opening remarks, I said I wanted to bring positive change to the Essex County Sheriff's Department. I do. That's why I'm running. You can talk about the pension, the benefits, whatever you want to think. My heart is in public safety. My goal is to see improvements in Essex County. And despite what my friend Eddie talks about the City of Lynn, I love the City of Lynn. We have great respect for our citizens of our city. And it is on the way back up. 20 years ago, yes, Lynn had a bad reputation. Lynn had a lot of crime. In fact, we probably fed a hell of a lot more inmates to the Essex County Sheriff's Department than we do today, I'm sure. So I'm going to take one more shot at Eddie and tell him he's got to open up his eyes and come down to Lynn and see the reality of Lynn, because it is a great place. But while I'm talking about while I'm running for sheriff, as I said before, I'm coming at it from the perspective of the people in our communities. I've seen what crime does to people. I've seen the hurt that it does to people. I've seen the opiate epidemic and what it does to people on the street. I've seen the issues of mental illness and how it affects families and other citizens. We need changes. Changes have to start in the Sheriff's Department. They have good programs up there. They need to be expanded and have additional ones put on there. Reentry is key. We need to make strong revisions in reentry. We need to connect them to local social service programs so the inmates do have a chance to keep on the straight and narrow and do become productive citizens. In short, if you're happy with the status quo of the Essex County Sheriff's Department, please don't vote for me. That's okay. I won't take offense to it. And I will let Eddie off the stage in one piece, I promise. But if you want to see positive change and you want to see some improvements in our cities and towns throughout the county, please consider my candidacy on September 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And finally, Ms. Marks.
I'm in my 29th year at the Essex County Corrections Department. I started as a correctional officer. I've been a correctional manager. For 13 years, I've been a correctional administrator. I deal with the budgets, I work with the unions. 29 years of corrections. I've moved my way through the system. I'm ready to lead the agency. I'm ready to lead the agency on day one. There's not going to be a learning curve. I won't need a tour of the facility. I won't need directions to get to the WIT. I won't need introductions to the staff. We do very good work at the Essex County Sheriff's Department. Can we do better? Absolutely. And I know what that blueprint is about. I've been part of the group that's brought corrections from a warehouse to a reentry facility. We do wonderful work. The Women in Transition Center, the Essex County Reentry Center. We have probably the largest group of people out on electronic monitoring that we monitor 24 hours a day that aren't taking up hot beds. I know that is the future of corrections, is reentry and diversion. And I've been doing it for 29 years. So please, on September 8th, please consider voting for Michael Marks. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Did you guys enjoy this format better than the 1 minute, 2 minute, 30-second forums that you guys have been doing lately?
It's the best format so far, Tom.
Thank you. I want to thank Calizzi Memorials, Mike and Candy Calizzi from Calizzi Memorials for sponsoring this tonight, as well as Paul Michello, our Registrar of Deeds, Patricia and Miles Burke from Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate, Richard Russell, who's in the front row, for donating, and Cynthia Aziz, attorney. We'd like you guys to stick around for a couple of seconds so we can get some pictures of you holding the paper, and hopefully we'll see you guys on Election Day. Thank you so much to everybody for coming. Jerry Robito, I'm sorry, Jerry Flynn, Jerry Robito's that guy. Jerry Flynn, Executive Director of the Police Benevolent Association, and Christine Morabito. Thank you very much, everyone. Read the Valley Patriot, valleypatriot.com.
How you doing? Gil Medeiros here with Tom Duggan, with the owner and publisher of the Valley Patriot monthly paper that's available in Salisbury. Tell us what you thought.
The one that Neil Harrington says nobody reads.
Exactly. Yeah. Tell us what you thought about this forum we had today.
Listen,
with the show.
I asked all the candidates, and trust me, candidates don't tell me what I want to hear, right? They said this was the best debate that they've done in the election because we didn't have a structure or a format where they had 30 seconds to explain a $50 million budget. You know, we allowed them to talk to each other. We allowed them to dispute what each other said. And we gave them enough time to not just answer the question, but put the thought behind why they feel that way. You know, how did they come to that conclusion? I think that's what the public wants. The public doesn't want memorized, rehearsed answers. These things that you're seeing today, they're calling them debates. They're not debates, they're forums. When someone has 30 seconds or a minute to introduce themselves to hundreds of thousands of constituents, you can't really introduce yourself in 30 seconds or a minute. And the same thing with you know, you want to talk about the opioid crisis. Okay, you've got 2 minutes. How do you do that in 2 minutes? So what the candidates generally do is they memorize answers, they give talking points, and the audience, the voters, don't learn anything. So we wanted to structure it tonight so that whoever is watching this, no matter whether you're undecided or you have a candidate, you're going to learn something, and hopefully people did. Hopefully they learned something tonight. Thanks for taping it.
I think it was very informative today. I've been to a couple of them now, and I think this one alone actually showed what the candidates are all about. And I believe you have the Republican Party one coming up shortly too, right?
Yes, next week, the 25th on Thursday. It's at the American Legion in Methuen. Methuen has actually asked for a copy of this tape so they can run them back to back. We want to make sure that with this race, it's one of the most important races in the county. It's a 6-year term. Most people don't know that. So whoever you elect, you're stuck with for 6 years, no matter what. We want to make sure that the voters make an informed decision, whoever it is that you vote for. I'm pulling a Democrat ballot. I've pretty much decided after tonight who I'm voting for. I think most people after watching this are probably, if they're pulling a Democrat ballot, are going to be making their mind up to one way or the other.
Well, very good, Tom. Thanks for hosting this.
Thanks for taking it.
And thanks for having us here.
Without you guys, the people at home wouldn't be able to see it.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks.